agenda to tackle that problem. But also a general feeling of cost of living going up, no public facilities in this constituency. So some of my priorities will be to look at that. There's no leisure centre here for people. Families have to go over the bridge to Widnes. There's no cinema, again, over the bridge to Widnes, which they then have to pay for, of course, with the bridge tolls. So there's a lot of work to do here. It's long overdue that someone stood up for the people here of Runcorn and Helsby and made some investment, made some changes, regeneration of the town centre. There's so much to do.
And finally, Reform obviously haven't had any real power as yet. That might begin to change now. Are you confident they're going to be able to deliver? Absolutely.
Now we've got 4 years before the general election. I totally believe that Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister of this country.
Sarah Pochen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
I mean, that's fascinating, Chris. There's a few things to go through. I mean, one is that she makes the point of saying people want change after 10 months of a Labour government. Well, that is a real headache for the government, isn't it?
The problem is they don't feel they've had change. The more that Keir Starmer says, we're delivering change, here is change, people can't say, well, where is the change? What has happened to me that's different? And this idea of this uni party, which spreads, I think, from social media, is being felt by many people, and a protest party, which Reform UK still is, just 5 MPs now, not anywhere near the number Labour have. So a protest vote against Labour government, no question. But looking at the numbers, the forecasts there from Martin Baxter, were this replicated at the general election, a 35% vote win there for Reform, 427 seats at the election for Reform, and a 200-seat majority. Labour have just sent out a response here. They're saying that by-elections are always difficult for the party in government, and events which led to this one being called were even harder. Don't forget it was caused by a Labour MP punching one of his voters. You can't think of a worse reason to call a by-election, frankly. Voters are rightly furious, Labour say, with the state of the country after 14 years of failure, and clearly expect the government to move faster with the plan for change. So clearly later we'll be speaking to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Hopefully I'll be interviewing him for GB News. We'll hear more of that later from him.
Yeah, but this is the key line for me, Chris. I've got to say, while Labour has suffered an extremely narrow defeat, the shock is that the Conservatives' vote has collapsed. No, well, that's not the shock. Is it? The shock is that the Labour vote has collapsed so catastrophically.
I think they're both a shock, actually, Steve. If you look at the Tory vote, it's down to the same as the Greens. I mean, this is the party of opposition, 2-3-4-1 for the Tories in that vote, 2-3-1-4 for the Greens, nearly the same.
I mean, the Labour Party is right that by-elections are not a perfect indicator of what's going to happen in the general election. And there is usually a lot more tactical voting in by-elections because people are more aware of what's going on. There's
send a message.
Exactly, send a message. There's so much more focus on that one election when it is a by-election compared to a general election. But nevertheless, they are a good weather vane for the national mood. And I think not just in Runcorn, but in the local election results that we're going to be reporting on. An incredible change, and actually where there are, in strong Conservative areas, the Conservative vote has moved to Reform, and in strong Labour areas, the Reform vote is now neck and neck with Labour, so a huge political change. And
you're seeing that the chairman of the party, the Reform UK party, saying vote Conservative, get Labour.
Yeah.
And we're looking, if you look at those results in the with Tom's show just now in the Mayoral, I mean, so tight. I mean, the West of England, 6,000 win there for Labour, but the turnout was 205,000 people voted, so a huge number. North Tyneside, just 444, and Doncaster, 698. They are literally breathing on the necks of Labour in so many seats.
I was listening to Matthew Torbit on Tom's show through the night, and he made a very valid point, didn't he, that when we heard from the government throughout the night, what they weren't doing was addressing the problems which are pushing people towards reform. All they're doing is blaming the last 14 years.
What I've detected going around the country covering politics for GB News is the frustration about where money's being spent. Yeah. They look at this money being spent notably by a Labour MP called Rachel Reeves, announced back in January or February, more money in the south, more money on what with Luton Airport, Gatwick Airport, Heathrow Airport, a train line between Oxford and Cambridge. Where's their investment? You heard that from Sarah Pochen. No leisure centre centre in her seat. No cinema. To go to both those things, you have to cross the Runcorn Bridge and pay a toll to enjoy the things other people get in the country. Why is that fair? I think there's a lack of fairness, and why is the North being ignored by power brokers? We've seen it for decades, and now Reform are benefiting.
Yeah.
But do you not think this is also a moment of danger for Reform? I mean, in Parliament, certainly, they will still be the party of protest for the next 4 years. They'll be able to put down difficult questions to the Prime Minister. But they could end up with overall control of a number of councils after this, and they'll then be in the driving seat when it comes to delivering local services.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a danger that they'll find out that it's more difficult than it looks, that they will start to become then blamed for some of the local problems? Could that change their prospects before the
Not a
next election?
danger, a likelihood. They will get blamed. They are now in power. They will be in power, we expect, later on. They've won, I think, 60 council seats so far. Those, a few declared overnight, but those will be a torrent by lunchtime. Look at how many they get control of. Farage is saying he wants to send in a Doge-style spending review and deal with what he calls his non-core spending. But so much of spending is mandated by law. You can't get away with that. And I think
around 80%, I think.
and any failures, 80%. And so a tiny amount of money isn't part of that core legal spending. So you're going to see, and also you'll see Reform, the Labour and the Tories watching how they do and drawing to attention any mistakes.
All right, well, let's have a look then at the national picture as we understand it so far, Chris. So what have we got so far? I know obviously the results are a bit thin when it comes to local results, but what are we expecting to see? Where are the pointers so far?
Well, so far we have the results of these mayoralties. Now, so far we have 3 declared. Labour have held all 3, but just narrowly over Reform's push. Said that.
Can I ask what do you think that means then? Because I mean, you go down a win is a win line, right, for the government. Can they claim victory on that, or do they have to admit defeat that they've been pushed so far to the line by Reform?
A win is a win, and being in politics, then this is a visceral moment of election politics. It's all about counting, and that's why, conversely, Reform will say a win is a win in Runcorn, when Labour could say it's just 6. And don't forget, 79 ballots were spoiled by people writing remarks or not voting properly on it. So it could have gone either way so clearly. But yeah, looking at those numbers there, West of England held with a majority of nearly 6,000 of 205,000 who voted. So tight. Labour held that seat. North Tyneside mayoralty 444, Doncaster 698. We're expecting more results from the mayoralties, and we're expecting Grid Lincolnshire and Hull to go towards Reform when counting starts.
Do you think results like the one in Doncaster, where actually it was a very tight 3-way split between Labour, Reform and the Conservatives, do you think those results will put more and more pressure on the Conservatives particularly to come up with some sort of deal with Reform? Because if you look at that Doncaster result, had the Conservatives not stood, Reform would have easily won, and vice versa. Had Reform not stood, the Conservatives would have easily won. And it will seem to the Conservatives, certainly, and maybe some in Reform, that there are some seats that they will just be throwing away to Labour at the next election. Do they not come up with some
This
sort of
weekend is all about how Reform and the Tories work together. Richard Tice, a bit cheekily, the party's deputy leader, he says, vote Tory, get Labour. And you could say the reverse, vote Reform,
get Labour.
Get Labour for the Tory party. So you're going to see pressure on Kemi Bain, not the Tory leader, to do something. We'll be hearing from her later. Looking at the declared councillors so far, Reform are on 63, up 63. That's where they come from, a standing start of 0. Tories down 47 at 35, Labour down 13 at 11, and Lib Dems up 2 at 4, Greens steady at 1. So it's a Reform night, and it'll be a Reform day.
Sorry, Tim.
No, I was going to say a lot of this is going to be down then to, and it's a bit basic in a way, but it's in terms of who gives way, who blinks first between the Tories and Reform, it's going to be down to the charisma of the leader, isn't it? Well, obviously, that's where Nigel is streets ahead.
Nigel Farage is streets ahead. He is the most influential and important, totemic politician of the past 30 years. I have been following him for 20 years. He just sees round the corners that others don't see. He's an individual who likes people, he likes voters, he gets amongst voters, he campaigns amongst voters in quite unstructured ways, whereas the other party leaders tend to go to offices and they see workers under the watchful eye of bosses. He doesn't do that. He goes goes out and gets milkshake chucked on him. If you meet him for a cup of tea, he never sits inside cafes. He sits outside cafes to get all the beeps from the taxi drivers. He's someone who is amongst the people and gets them. I think that's a wake-up call for all the major parties.
And he's visible to young people, and I think the polling's now saying that Reform are now coming second amongst the young vote, the under 25.
Particularly young men.
Particularly young men, with only Labour in front, and actually Conservatives are behind the Lib Dems and the Greens, which is kind of what you'd expect for that youth age group. But isn't it interesting that a right-wing party is gaining so much traction amongst the young? Maybe that is because he's so visible, uses social media very well.
And I think for young men, he can say, look, it's OK to say what you think. You aren't necessarily racist or sexist if you say certain things which are a bit out of line with maybe woke thinking. There's that kind of feeling around Reform UK that it's a safer place to be for some people.
But that's why that's where it gets slightly dangerous in terms of how it's. However it's meant, it's how it's then interpreted by the media.
Exactly, and the people often, I think, young men, particularly as they're maturing, think, oh, anything I say I'll get called out for and shouted down when I'm not that person, but I'm seen out to be that person. I think Reform UK is somewhere that doesn't judge in that same way, and that is why people go towards them.
Heck, what a
start to the show.
And so much to come.
I mean, Nigel Farage has bumped the national anthem.
Yeah.
That's a moment in itself at GB News. But I guess
timed
he won't be happy if you tell him that later. But he'll say, "Well, there we are."
Well, it's the way of it. It's just that it's when you get a night of results like this. And it's you can see how all the parties, well, certainly Reform and Labour in this can say, oh, actually, it's not been a bad night for us. I mean, it has been a very good night for Reform, but it's that which will be frustrating for some, the fact that the government will turn around and say, no, actually, we've done all right. We very nearly won Runcorn and Helsby. We've held on to these mayoral votes. But if they don't address this underlying concern that a lot of people in this country have, it's going to keep falling away for them, isn't it?
It's not working for them. And we hear from Kemi Badenoch, she keeps saying it's a marathon, not a sprint. To which I say to her, no, you're in a sprint and you're a marathon runner. And she doesn't appear to want to produce policies that matter or to cut through. And that is a great frustration, I think, for Conservatives. Looking into the day, over 1,600 seats to be declared today, 14 councils held by the Tories. That will fall by a lot. Those are controlled by the Tories, won by Labour, so the day will be a bad one for the Tories, almost certainly.
And what's really interesting is that because of the councils that are up for grabs, of course, so many elections cancelled this year because of the proposed changes, but 58% of the seats up for grabs today are Tory-held, so the Tories have got the most to lose by a long way.
And of those 60 declared so far, inroads in Staffordshire. You know, this is red wall territory, areas where the Tories did so well in 2019, and now I think it looks like Reform to do well for them.
Yeah. Are we ready? OK, let's head over to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Morning, Catherine.
Yes, good morning. An absolutely extraordinary night here in the constituency of Runcorn and Helsby. Labour held this seat by nearly 15,000 majority. That has been overturned by Reform by just 6 votes. The announcement just in the last half hour, there was a recount. We were expecting the result originally at around 3. Now, I'm joined by Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform. Congratulations. Look, Reform have had a few bumps in the road recently. What's your message to the many doubters who think that you're just a protest party?
Well, look, you've just got to look at the evidence. Firstly, the congratulations are due to Sarah Pochin, our amazing new Reform MP. And look, I spent a lot of time with her on this campaign. She's going to be a formidable politician and someone that we're going to be really inspired to work with. I've also got a message to everybody who voted for us today, who trusted us with their vote. People watching this programme who are deeply patriotic, who are sick and tired of the 2 old parties, the deceit, the lies, the lack of integrity. And we're going to be different to that. And one of the most interesting things about this whole campaign is that there was a real sense of something historic about to happen. And what we have seen already, obviously more results due to come tomorrow, but this is without a doubt the most important set of local elections in British history, for the primary reason that what it has shown is that the stranglehold that the two old parties have had on British politics for 100 years has been decisively broken. We've proven that the polls, we've been leading in the polls nationally. A lot of people, the critics and the skeptics, said those polls are not real. When we travel around the country and we speak to people and we see the reception Nigel and our MPs get, or when they knock on the doors or just walk down the street, we knew those polls were real, and now we can see that at the ballot box. The most important thing is that when Nigel said he was going to come back into frontline politics last June, feels like a decade ago, it was only last June, he said he was going to become leader of Reform UK, he was going to stand for election in Clacton-on-Sea, and it was a part of a 5-year plan. This is phase 1 of that plan complete. Not only do we now have 5 Reform MPs, what we've delivered now is hundreds, it's going to be hundreds of Reform councillors. We're going to take control of several councils, so you're going to have Reform-controlled councils for the first time. We've already won Andrea Jenkins, who's also an incredible politician. She's now the mayor of Lincolnshire. I think we've taken control of Lincolnshire County Council as well. So we now have a bedrock of official position where we can now start to deliver for constituents. And we're really clear about this. Our mission is to get Nigel Farage elected to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, flanked by 350 to 400 Reform MPs. There will be no pacts, no mergers with the Tories. We're going to head to government. We've got a lot of work to do, but I just want to reiterate, we're so deeply grateful and thankful to the people who watched this programme, who support Reform and voted for us.
Immigration, one of the key issues here, as in so many places, but on the cost of living as well. You're going to have to deliver now in councils. What are you going to do that's going to be different to what the other parties have done in the past?
Well, we're very excited actually about the opportunity to deliver a common sense form of governance at local level. What do constituents want? We hear it all the time. They want potholes fixed. Instead of hundreds of millions of pounds being spent on not fixing potholes, how about actually fixing them? They want their bins collected on time and not the threat, and less of the threat of bins only being collected once every 2 or 3 weeks. They don't want their council tax going up 5, 10, 15, in some cases 30% because the council keeps going bankrupt. They don't want their councils wasting huge amounts of money on idiotic woke projects like these DEI programs. They've had enough of that. So one of the commitments we have made, which we will deliver on, is that we're going to audit, we're going to bring in auditors, we're going to expose waste. If we find corruption, we're going to expose that as well. We're going to stop the wasteful spending. So that's the first aspect of what we have to do. We're going to have innovative ways to deliver on fixing potholes. We're going to fix the way councils do procurement. I mean, if you just fixed procurement in this country, you would solve many of its ills. Now, look, we don't yet have a majority in the House of Commons, but I can promise to everybody watching this programme, every Reform elected official will discharge their duties as maximally as they possibly can, as much as they're constitutionally empowered to deliver on the Reform values at a local level.
And some in opposition parties are hoping that at some point Reform will simply sort of self-combust. We have seen a big falling out. Rupert Lowe is very angry with you indeed still. Are you confident that you can remain united over the next 4 years?
Extremely so, extremely so. I think we're going to add more MPs with further parliamentary by-elections. I mean, as you said, this was one of Labour's safest seats in the country, and this parliamentary by-election didn't come 3 years into an unpopular government. It's come 10 months after a supermajority was achieved, and we were up against heavy artillery in terms of Labour's ground campaign machine. That's another really important point when people talk about Reform disappearing. We have built durable infrastructure here in the way that, frankly, no prior Nigel Farage party had really managed to build. We've got 460 branches across the country, tens of thousands of volunteers. If we didn't have that, because I know we're talking about Runcorn and Helsby because we're here and it was very nail-biting and exciting, but we shouldn't forget there were 1,630 council seats up and those mayoral positions, and we fought all of those campaigns across this great country simultaneously. We could not have done that without the hard work of all of those branches and grassroots, and we have built that from scratch inside 10 months. And I'll tell you one other thing. However good our campaign was this year, it's going to be twice as good by next year, and probably another 50% as good as the year after that.
And just finally, the Prime Minister didn't visit, but pretty much everybody else from Labour was up here. They threw everything at it. Why do you think that was, and what is your message for the Labour government? Because a lot of the focus has previously been on the damage that you're going to do to the Conservatives.
Yeah. Well, look, my sense, having spent quite a lot of time here campaigning and knocking on doors, if the Prime Minister had visited, it would have been less close. Labour would have gotten far fewer votes. He is deeply, deeply maligned, deeply unpopular. The word betrayed kept coming up. This was something I picked up that was really interesting. On speaking to people on the doorstep, we spoke to so many Labour voters, in some cases lifelong Labour voters, who are now going to vote for reform, who kept using the word betrayed. They betrayed us. In a very similar way that I would hear the same word being used about Tories. Now, obviously, the Tories were total also-rans here. Isn't it funny that His Majesty's most loyal opposition, not even in the running for the first important parliamentary by-election here, but the most important thing is Keir Starmer has betrayed Labour. A lot of those voters feel betrayed. We are the party for working people. Nigel has been, I would say, at the forefront of saying, look, we're parking our tanks on Labour's lawns. And this, the evidence in Runcorn and Helsby and across the country, the analysis I've seen already from the results that have come out shows that the swing from Labour to Reform in many, many seats is well north of 20 percentage points, in some cases 30 percentage points. Huge swings. So I think that Labour support is extremely brittle. We've got a huge opportunity not just to win support from former Tory voters, but also to win support from Labour voters. And that's why I'm very confident if we work hard, we continue to get our message out there, that we can get Nigel elected as our Prime Minister and have a reform government.
And just very finally, you're all from quite privileged backgrounds. Richard Tice, Nigel Farage, yourself. Working people, some very disadvantaged people are putting their faith in reform. Do you really, really get it, what they're going through?
Well, I can talk about my own story. I didn't grow up in poverty, but it certainly wasn't privileged. My parents came here from Sri Lanka in the early 1980s, and we didn't have all that much money. I got a great education because I got a scholarship, and they both worked 2 jobs. So, my first 2 jobs were on minimum wage. So, look, the most important thing is that nobody is connecting with working people in this country in the way that Nigel does, in the way that our MPs do. Why? Because we talk about common sense, not because we're ideologically possessed, and because we have a government that is those things. We have an energy secretary who is destroying this country through insane policies that, the net zero lunacy, the religion that causes us to have the most expensive energy in the world. We have a chancellor who has no idea how any sort of business works, how any economy works, which is why we have no growth in our economy. The number of taxes she has raised, which are resulting in literally less money for the exchequer, whether it's capital gains, whether it's inheritance tax. These are people who are utterly clueless. And so when I walk around with Nigel, and he spent time here, he was here all day today, and he's been here 3 times during this campaign. He's a very powerful campaigner for us. The reception he gets from working people is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform, thank you very much for talking to us today on GB News. So there you have it, Zia Youssef saying that many working people here feel betrayed, feel that Labour have betrayed them. And of course, they got that massive landslide 10 months ago, wasn't it? It was a pretty loveless landslide based largely on the fact that people were really, really fed up with 14 years of the Conservatives. Labour have promised change. Now, they are going to have to deliver on that, because I have to say the people that I've talked to up here are thoroughly fed up. Labour certainly have a very, very difficult economic inheritance, but a lot of people feel that they've swapped a Conservative government for a Labour government, but things are not getting better. This is obviously something that Reform think, and at the moment it looks like, are going to massively be able to capitalise on.
All right, Catherine, thank you. What is slightly confusing at this stage, and you will have seen it from what Zia Youssef said, he said, well, Andrea Jenkins has won the Greater Lincolnshire Mayoral race for Reform UK. Well, not yet, she hasn't. We're still waiting for the results, but the faith that she has taken that is absolutely there. Let's head to Lincolnshire. Jack Carson is there for us. Why is there so much confidence, Jack, that Andrea Jenkins has won before the result is announced?
Well, we are imminently expecting the official declaration. And what we've had all throughout the night is each different council, local authority taking charge of the counts in their areas. We have now had all nine counts around the Lincolnshire region return their votes, and so we are awaiting that imminent declaration. But adding up all of the totals of all of the votes from across those 9 areas, Andrea Jenkins has come out as the winner and will be the Reform UK Mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, will become Greater Lincolnshire's first mayor. In the latest and the last 2 counts that we've had declared with their votes, East Lindsey District Council, though this was one of the council areas with one of the highest turnouts in this election, with 35.42% as a turnout. Andrea Jenkins winning 19,875 votes. In second place, Rob Weltham, the local Conservative candidate, 9,397. Now, Reform haven't won all of the 9 areas that have been voting today. North Lincolnshire Council went to Rob Weltham, 14,003 votes to Andrea Jenkins's 12,993 votes. Now, Rob Weltham, it has to be said, is the leader of the North Lincolnshire Council, so maybe that is an area that he was expected to win. We know that had gone to a recount in the late hours of this morning. Situations we've been hearing around 450 lost ballots that were then found, and as they started to be recounted, they heard there was a fire alarm in the building, so they then had to evacuate and recount them again. So that's where we've had a few different delays. West and East Lindsey District Councils also taking a while to verify all of those ballots. That is a very important process as part of this election, to verify that all the numbers match with the number of ballots in the box, the number of ballots issued both in person for those that have voted yesterday, but also those, of course, who have voted weeks in advance with postal votes as well. But in each different count that has come in, we have seen a turquoise wave for Reform across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. Now, Lincolnshire is really much of a blue county, all of it very much Brexit voting back in 2016, and since then Conservatives taking a real stronghold. We've also got Lincolnshire County Council elections, all of those seats up for grabs as well, and I can tell you that with counts so far coming back, Reform have gained 14 seats on that council from their starting position of 0. So they are having a very good day, it seems, and very good 24 hours here in Lincolnshire. And there's been a number of issues, because Lincolnshire being the second biggest county in the country means that there are different issues for different parts of this region. Here where we are in Grimsby, of course, the fishing industry huge to this town. You go a little bit to Crossways and you find yourself in Scunthorpe, and of course the steelworks there has been made a massive issue of this campaign. Andrea Jenkins and the Reform campaign really coming down hard on net zero, wanting to see an abandonment of those electric blast furnaces at that plant. Rob Waltham, though, saying he had a strong campaign with Scunthorpe because of the fact he says he's a son of a steel worker. He thinks it is important that the UK continues to create virgin steel, and so those issues really big here in the north of the county. But you go further south and you've got massive rural areas of this country. You think of South Holland, you think of different parts of South Lincolnshire, which are hugely rural, and so Labour were always going to struggle in those areas with the recent changes from the Labour government to the likes of inheritance tax on farms. We've seen the protests in the last few weeks. We've spoken to a lot of farmers in Lincolnshire. We knew that was going to be a difficult one for the Labour Party to win there. So that is traditionally, though, rural conservative votes. So very interesting to see those rural conservative voters switching over to Reform, believing maybe that they have the better interests at heart. Now, we know that this Greater Lincolnshire Authority takes care of things like investment, education, transport in this region. £24 million a year is given to the mayor. So Andrea Jenkins becomes one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, one of the most powerful politicians that is not sitting in Westminster for Reform UK. This is a big opportunity. Reform will see this as to stamp their authority locally, and of course we are imminently awaiting that declaration. But with all 9 of the counties,
all right,
won the Greater Lincolnshire Mayoral.
All right, Jack, thank you very much indeed. Heck, what a night it's been. Yeah. So we've got so much more to come throughout the day. Former Conservative Special Advisor Charlie Rowley is here, along with former Labour Advisor Scarlett Maguire. disastrous night for the government, this, Scarlett, isn't it?
Oh, come on, Stephen. We expected to lose Runcorn and we lost it by 6 votes after a recount and kept 3 less.
You lost a 15,000-plus majority in 10 months.
We lost a majority when the guy who was ousted, the Labour person, had punched somebody. Not just punched him, but also punched him when he was on the ground. I mean, you know, he was a criminal, right? You always... I mean, you know, if you look at the Conservative by-elections... in the last time, if you had a good person, they probably won, and then as soon as there was a scandal attached to it, they lost. So we did expect to lose. I mean, we tried not to lose Runcorn. Obviously, we tried very hard. And I have to say, when Reform says the people have spoken, the people are pretty polarised.
Oh, no, we just thought we had Jack with the result there, but no, that isn't quite there. Charlie, what do you know about him? Because, I mean, a lot of people look at this and say it's been a good night for Reform, been a bad night for Labour. It's not been a good night for the Tories.
No. Well, that's all what the predictions are and what even CCHQ, Conservative Party headquarters, was putting out, that it's going to be a terrible night for the Tories. So maybe that's what we should expect. We'll have to wait and see, because we haven't had actual county council elections.
Yes.
All right, Charlie, we are going to go back to Lincolnshire for that mayoral result.
Follows. Horscroft, Sally Ann, The Green Party, 15,040. Jenkins, Andrea Marie, Reform UK, 104,133. Overton, Marianne Jane, Lincolnshire Independents, 19,911. Stockwood, Jason, Labour and Cooperative Party, 30,384. Waltham, Alan Robert, commonly known as Rob Waltham, Local Conservatives, 64,585. Young, Trevor Victor, commonly known as Trevor Young, Liberal Democrats, 13,728. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows: want of official mark, 0. Voting for more candidates than the voter was entitled to vote for, 128. Writing or mark by which the voter could be identified, 45. Unmarked or void for uncertainty, 1,838. The total number of rejected ballot papers was 2,011. And I do hereby declare that the said Andrea Marie Jenkins is duly elected as Mayor to the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority.
Wow, what a long night. Thank you. To the people of Lincolnshire, thank you for putting your trust in me. I will work tirelessly for you every day. To the council officers and everybody in this room who's shattered, I thank you as well. I thank my big sister, who's also my agent. You know, she's a walking miracle. She nearly died, was in a coma 18 months ago and was told she'd never walk again. And she's here today and she's my election agent. To my team, to Max and the team, and all my amazing Reform volunteers who's pounded the streets, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now to Nigel, to Richard and to Zia, I thank you for your friendship, for your support, and getting me through these last few difficult weeks. I'm immensely proud to be part of the Reform family. So thank you for welcoming me. And thank you to my friend Gloria, who's in the audience, for keeping me sane. Now, I've fought many elections, 4 general elections, my 3rd local election, but I'm going to be brief with this, don't worry. I've never experienced such negativity and soul-destroying campaigns against me like this one. It was soul-destroying. The dirty tricks in the US politics, I believe it's now being imported here into Britain. The Conservatives called the police on me and implied I slept with political friends. They contacted the mainstream media to smear me. The Independent's husband pushed for a hearing at the council. My barrister had to represent me. The case was dismissed. The campaign was also filled with irony, as one of the candidates stated I was parachuted in. She said in her South African accent. Now, they undemocratically tried to remove me from the ballot, but I will say no more on this, and I wish them all well. Because this is insignificant now, and I'll draw a line under it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new dawn in British politics. Is that a sign? The rebuilding begins here. Now, Britain, we're going to have a Britain where we put British people first, where we put you and your families first. We make sure that you are in front of the queue and you are at the heart of our policy decisions. Today, we as Reform, as we're making gains up and down the country, you will see an end to soft-touch Britain. The fight back to save the heart and soul of our great country has now begun. Now that Reform is in a place of power, we can help start rebuilding Britain. Inch by inch, Reform will reset Britain to its glorious past. We will tackle illegal migration. We've been working on policies. I say no to putting people in hotels. Tents are good enough for France. They should be good enough for here in Britain. But I take my hat off to our great leader, Nigel. Now, he has fought for decades, and he still fights for you here today. And I know one day he will make a magnificent Prime Minister. Now, to the people of Lincolnshire, I will fight for you. I will not shy away from asking tough questions and challenging the two-tier system that has broken Britain. With me as your mayor, I will always put you first. I will keep your taxes low. I will work with you, with our industries, with our business, and with our young people. And together, it's time to heal. We will deliver a once-in-a-generation change. I will lead with a sword of common sense and cut through wastage and bureaucracy. I will fight for the heart and soul for our farmers against this god-awful Labour government. And I will fight against the destruction of our countryside by Ed Miliband. I will fight to ensure Lincolnshire is the best place to live, to work and retire. But most importantly, as a mum to my precious gift in the world, my 7-year-old son Clifford, just as I fight for him and his future, I will fight for your children's future. I will fight for your children's future in this great county that I grew up. Thank you.
Well, there you go, Dame Andrea Jenkins winning the mayoral election there in Greater Lincolnshire. 104,133 votes, I think, against the Tories' 64,585. A resounding victory. Christopher Hope, our political editor, what do you think?
Well, she feels vindicated. I mean, she's had a bruising campaign. There was a challenge about whether she actually lived in the seat. That was fought last Friday. She won that. There may be a challenge over her status as the victorious candidate in the future, but given the scale of that vote, you'd have thought that the other parties might accept it. She's angry. I mean, she's passionate. She is, of course, as an MP photographed for flicking the bird at people yelling at her at the gates of Downing Street. She is a Brexiteer, but she talks from the heart. I think she has authenticity. She calls a spade a spade. I think that's part of why she's interesting and will be a fascinating local mayor.
She's going to be a big voice for reform. She'll be one of their most senior elected
most powerful
people.
one, actually, with the biggest budget.
Exactly, but it's a very different thing being a passionate voice in Parliament, being good on the media, attracting attention for your political views, and actually the day-to-day job of running a massive combined local authority. And her principal responsibility now will be things like buses, policing. It's an entirely different skill to be able to manage those things well than it is to be an effective Westminster politician.
But if it goes wrong, they can blame Labour. That's what will happen, Miriam. I mean, yes, no question they're charged. But look at these numbers here. 42% of the vote over the Tories on 26%. Labour down just to 12%.
This is far more worrying for the Conservatives than Runcorn. They never expected to win Runcorn. It's never been a Conservative
seat. But they fought hard in this
Lincolnshire is one of the safest areas for the Conservatives.
And then, yes, and it goes on there, you know, Independent 8%, Green 6%, Lib Dems 5%. The major parties are being trounced, we're seeing here. And if this is reflected through the day with the local elections, and I think the forecast of maybe 500 wins for Reform UK could be under what the actual figure is.
All right, stay with us, Chris. Back to you in just a second.
Well, we're now going to speak to the Conservative Party co-chairman, Nigel Huddleston, who joins us now. Nigel, good morning. A long night, a very, very disappointing night for the Conservatives, and obviously many, many results still left to come.
Yes, I mean, it has been a long night, and we were bracing ourselves for a challenging night because, of course, many of the results that will be coming in today are based off the cycle of 2021, where we had an unprecedented victory. We got 66%, I think, of all seats up. We were winning seats. We won the Hartlepool by-election on the same day. So 4 years later, in a very different circumstance, having lost 2/3 of our MPs at last year's general election, of course, we were bracing ourselves for a very difficult night. But we have been putting up a fight, and the results are still coming in.
This Greater Lincolnshire result, I mean, 64,585. I mean, not, you know, almost down to half of what Dame Andrea Jenkins has just taken to win that, and that's something you presumably thought you could win.
Well, I think Reform have been forecast for quite a while to win Lincolnshire. We had an excellent candidate in Rob Waltham, and I was there campaigning with him very recently. But Reform threw the kitchen sink at it, and it's fertile ground in Lincolnshire. I'm actually from Lincolnshire originally myself, and I know in particular immigration is a major issue in Lincolnshire, and Reform based the campaign in Lincolnshire largely on the national issues. Now, strategically, that worked for them. But I think what Andrea Jenkins can do as mayor on some of the issues she's been campaigning on will prove to be quite a challenge for her. You know, these elections are about council elections, about what the council can do, and the mayoral elections about what the mayor can do. And it's really important that we focus on the remit that's appropriate. But understandably, people voted for a whole host of other reasons. I completely get that. And as I say, believe me, we are still learning the lessons of last year's election. We will take this beating with humility, as we did last year's election, because we do need to show the public that we understand, and we are still in the process of renewal. We're under new leadership, but we've got a long way to go.
Nigel, Chris Hope in the studio here with Stephen and Miriam. Where does this leave your leader this weekend? She says repeatedly she's in a marathon, not a sprint. But surely she's a marathon runner in a sprint. She's not doing enough. The policies aren't there. She's not setting the electorate wanting to vote Conservative. Is her future now at stake?
No, because a primary job, and the job we've been doing very well since last year's election, is holding this absolutely shambolic, disastrous Labour government to account. We are His Majesty's opposition. There are 121 of us in Parliament, and day in, day out, we are holding these lot to account. And they are making terrible mistakes, and the public know that we're on their side and holding Labour to account, whether it's winter fuel or destroying businesses through national insurance increases. That is our primary job, that is our primary focus, and that is what we will continue to do. Labour are really ruining this country. And it is our responsibility as a team, not just Kemi, but the entire team, to make sure that we do our job to highlight Labour's errors. And we will continue to do that. When I've been around the country with Kemi, and you've seen it as well in various focus groups and so on, people like what she's got to say. But she's only been the leader for the last few months. People are still getting to know her, but when they hear her, they like what she's got to say.
Nigel, I suppose what people will ask, though, is how can the Conservatives capitalise on the unpopularity of the Labour government? Because you are right, you know, the polls do show that people are disappointed with Labour. They've fallen from what was a relatively low vote share at the last election. They've fallen even further from that. And yet, as these results show, and are likely to show throughout the day, those votes are bleeding to Reform and not to the Conservatives. And how, without being in power, are the Conservatives going to prove that they are a real alternative to Labour once again?
Yeah, well, I think we're showing it day in, day out in terms of our ability to hold Labour to account, particularly in the Chamber of the House of Commons, and the way that we are really minutiae going into their
Nigel,
policies,
some great work
holding them to account holding them to account. Yeah,
you're right.
But I mean, look, holding them to account on bill committees. But this is why it is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think the results that we'll see overnight as well are very interesting. Because, look, the reality is Reform are taking votes from all over the place. We are a Conservative party, and we'll be sending the message to the British public that we are rebuilding the party based on sound Conservative principles and values, because people felt that we moved too far away from them. And over the next few months and years, you will see us use our time in opposition extremely wisely to build an alternative proposition that can be an alternative government, and make sure that the public see if they want Conservative values and principles, then they vote Conservative. The interesting thing about the results overnight is that Reform are now trying to be everything to everybody right across the country. Last year, they were pretending to be the alternative to the Conservatives. Now they're presenting themselves as the alternative to Labour. To the Conservative-minded voters, they're offering low taxes. To Labour voting people, they're offering big government and government interference and big spending. That is not a credible long-term proposition. Ours will be based on a credible, alternative, strong foundation of Conservative values, principles and policies. But you can't do that overnight. We lost the election last year for a good reason. People lacked trust in us, and we need to build that up over time. But that is exactly what we will do, and we will not be driven off course by that. It will be difficult to do that. There's no doubt about that. But Kemi is strident. She's very, very clear on what she wants to do and what she wants to achieve. And actually the British public, I think, over time will come to really respect her, and actually also see that we do have an alternative that is genuinely an alternative government, not a protest, not a temporary thing, but a long-term alternative.
But Nigel, if you bring together the votes of Reform and a Conservative party, you would wipe the floor with the Labour Party. Is it now not time to seriously talk about some form of merger between your party and Reform UK?
No, for the basic reason that I just articulated. Reform are not a Conservative party. You could only merge with an entity or group who shares your underlying values and principles. Reform's #1 goal is the destruction of the Conservative Party. That's a pretty difficult basis for a relationship. And they do not share our values and principles. And I mean this across the board. Our values include such things as freedom, democracy, sovereignty. Well, Nigel Farage has not exhibited that in his enthusiastic support, or rather admiration, of Putin. We believe in low tax, small government and sound money. Reform had a manifesto promising £140 billion of unfunded tax and spending commitments at the last election. That's not Conservative. They do not share our values and principles. They are now adopting a policy strategy, albeit very popular, of pure populism, promising everything to everybody. No wonder that's popular. Going around saying you can have low taxes and big spending is popular. I get that. I understand it. I can understand why it's attractive. But it's not Conservative and it's not sustainable. So it's going to be a long period of time before we actually get these messages across and actually make sure that we've communicated these clearly to the public. But we will be using this time in opposition very wisely to do just that.
Nigel, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Does he have a point, Chris, in terms of the populism promising all things to all people?
I've often been saying to Nigel Farage, are you the Lib Dems in disguise? They're offering to support nationalising the Scunthorpe steel plant and also lift the basic rate of when you start paying tax to £20,000, a huge tax cut for millions of workers. The key quote from that interview, I thought, there was when the chairman of the Tory party said that Reform are not a Conservative party. That's amazing because we've always thought of them as a kind of to the right of the Tory party. In fact, they're not doing that, and we've been told this is happening by Reform UK for the past month since the election. It's now happening in real time in actually an election.
But many voters will listen to that and say, well, the Conservative Party is also not a Conservative party.
Yes, absolutely.
And Nigel Huddleston, the co-chairman of the Conservative Party there, mentioned about being for a low-tax, small-state government. But the Conservative Party, of course, left this country with the highest tax burden ever, with enormous public debt, huge spending on things like the NHS. So it's going to be very difficult for the Conservative Party to break with that record and say that they are Conservative again.
But for them to say, yes, I know, exactly right. I mean, and where is Reform now? Is it a Labour party or a Labour-supporting and facing party or a Tory-facing party? And that's why it's so hard for the two main parties to work out and calibrate a response.
But it is all about, and what's interesting with what Nigel was saying is the fact he says your people have to bed in and wait for this long marathon to take place from Kemi.
You heard it again.
But what actually people want is a reflection of themselves. They want to feel better off in the pocket, or they want to hear from people who say we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And it might not be easy, but it's about connecting with the electorate, isn't it? It's about connecting with our viewers and listeners. And other parties aren't doing it.
And we actually see some Labour cabinet ministers who refuse to come on GB News. When I would argue where the debate is being held on this channel between Labour and Reform supporters, and some Tory supporters too. I don't know why that would happen. I think that there's a wake-up call for the people at the top of that Labour Party. It's for some of them to engage more.
But haven't we seen that a lot from this government so far, is that there seems to be this a sense of indignation, burying their heads in the sand a little bit over things like the farmers' tax, over things like the winter fuel allowance, where they announce an unpopular policy, but they seem unwilling to debate it.
Because it's Labour saying it, I think they do think, well, it's us saying it. We're not like the bad old Tories. It's Labour saying it. When in fact the effect is the same. Those two issues, I think, they still cut through, don't they? Particularly, I think, with the issue of pensioners.
One of the key issues of the last few years of politics has been immigration, and of course that was one of the main reasons why people switched from the Conservatives to Reform last July, was because they'd voted for lower immigration again and again, and it just gone up and up and up under the Tories. Now, this, I think, is the one policy that Reform have got in their favour that really distinguishes them from the other parties. Why don't the Conservatives just move into that space and say, yes, we'll leave the ECHR, yes, we'll restore the Rwanda plan? Why don't they just do that? It's such an obvious move.
Yes, but I think, again, you heard there from the chairman of the party, we're in a marathon, not a sprint. The problem is the electorate is sprinting away from the Tory party, and they're reviewing. I think they're reviewing lawfare. They're not even reviewing the ECHR membership, which is what you need to ensure there's a firm dealing with the small boats crisis. But it hasn't changed. The Rwanda plan has gone. The reason not to come here has gone for many migrants, and although the government says it's because of better weather in the Channel, while there's been a record since January, but real concerns about why on earth they can't understand that. But again, what is Reform's policy is to tow the boats back to France. Now, legally, that may not be possible, so they are saying things which are attractive to voters and they're pulling in the votes, but is that deliverable? And I mean, a lot more scrutiny, by the way, let's not forget this, over the next coming years. You heard there from Zia Yusuf, I think, saying there this party is heading for government. Well, as we get nearer government for Reform UK, they'll have the same focus.
Well, except unless they follow the Trump playbook. I mean, I know it's different, but what President Trump seems to be doing, whether you like him or not, is he announces something and he does it. sort of
kind of does it.
Damn the consequences.
Well, he kind of, then he pulls back.
Well, he pulls back, but he's.
I think the most interesting thing he's done there is by initially, this is only about 2 months ago, when he announced his plans for tariffs on Canada and Mexico to force them to man the border, and border crossings are now down by 95%.
So
I mean, yes, it does work.
Let's talk about tactical voting, because when we had a two-party system, when I think in 2017 the two major parties got over 90% of the vote between them, so Conservatives and Labour, we've now seen a complete fracturing of that. There are really 5 major parties in UK politics now, and it's going to be very interesting to see how people use that knowledge to vote tactically. So looking at the Runcorn by-election, yes, the Tories did terribly, so did the Lib Dems, and it looks like everybody on the right has put their vote in Reform, everybody on the left has put their vote in Labour. Once the Conservatives are not the major party on the right anymore, do you think that the tactical vote share will just rapidly move away from them?
Well, it could do. I mean, you look at those figures there. The Tories down to 2,241, the same as the Greens, but they weren't campaigning at all. I mean, we still, I think it looks like there was an informal agreement to go easy on Runcorn to put a blow over Labour. That's the Runcorn story. But look at the Great Lincolnshire. That's not the case there at all. And
but
that's
how much does that local campaigning really matter? Because people are often voting on how they perceive the National Party to be doing. And certainly in Northumberland, in that election, Reform came very close, even though they did nothing on the ground. They were not expected to do it. Isn't it now just the national perception that's driving people's vote?
Well, it does to a certain degree. I think local issues still matter, potholes still matter, but the national government is blamed for that. In that sense, that's right. And of course, as you said, 80% of council budgets are mandated how you spend it. It's only really 20% where you can affect actual change in how it's being spent and priorities.
OK. Chris, for now, thank you very much indeed. Talk to you in just a minute. First, so let's see how the weather's going to play out for you today. No votes on this one. It's honour.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Some more cloud around today, a risk of showers and feeling a little cooler across northern areas, but otherwise there's plenty of warm sunshine to go around, particularly across the south. Now, through the early hours of the morning across the southwest, there could be some low cloud, but this eventually easing away through the morning. The odd shower possible across central and southern parts, but this should be very isolated. The bulk of the showers are going to be across the very far north of Scotland, with more cloud here, but otherwise many should see a largely dry end to the week and feeling warm still, highs around 26 degrees Celsius across the southeast, just a little cooler across Scotland, northern parts of England, but still feeling pleasant in any sunnier spells. To finish off the day, more clouds still across northern parts of Scotland, still plenty of showers sweeping their way eastwards, a little drier across southern parts of Scotland, and a largely dry and bright end to the day across Northern Ireland too. Northern England might just see a little bit more cloud, particularly across eastern areas, but central and southern parts once again should see a largely dry end to the day, though still the chance of the odd shower just creeping in across the far south to finish off the day. But any showers mostly easing away for the first part of the evening, but we're going to see more and more cloud continue to feed its way into Scotland, more showers moving through here, and also some showery outbreaks just starting to clip their way into the very far southwest through the earlier hours of the morning, and these could be potentially quite heavy, but overall largely dry and still a fairly mild night to come. Now, we do need to keep an eye on this area across the southwest. Some heavy showers just pushing up across southern counties. They could turn heavy, potentially quite thundery as we head through the course of the morning, but most of the thunderstorms perhaps may just stay out across the English Channel. But any showers across Scotland easing away, and once again many areas seeing a dry and bright day, a little cooler but still pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 21 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, Stephen, it does feel like summer is finally on its way. We've actually had some sunshine this week. But imagine where you could be going this summer if you won our biggest ever Great British giveaway. That's right, your chance to win a 4-berth motorhome worth over £67,000.
Very nice. Plus, we'll throw in £5,000 in tax-free cash as well. That'll pay for a bit of petrol. So it's worth more than £72,000. Every single bit of it could be yours. Here's how.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, we'll bring you the latest on that nail-biting election win for Reform UK.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk, and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. It's 7:20, and it's been a very tense morning for everybody waiting on the Runcorn by-election result.
Yes, but after a full recount, the Reform candidate Sarah Pochin was officially announced as the new Member of Parliament for Runcorn and Helsby.
Well, there are only 6 votes in it. There were 4 votes in it at the first count, 6 votes after the recount, and that makes it the closest by-election in history.
Indeed. So let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's there. Very, very close, Catherine, but a win is a win.
A win is a win. Quite an extraordinary night. We were originally expecting the result around 3 o'clock in the morning, but it was so close then. There was a full recount. In the end, Reform edged it by just 6 votes. Now, worth saying, at the last general election, just 10 months ago, Labour had a majority of nearly 15,000 in this seat, and Reform were a very, very distant second. So isn't it extraordinary what a difference 10 months have made? The Labour Party, of course, got that huge landslide largely on people being very, very fed up with the Conservatives. Now it seems that very many people are very, very fed up with this new government just 10 months in. Now, I interviewed Nigel Farage, triumphant, as you might expect, a little bit earlier on breakfast. Also, the new female MP, Reform's first female MP, Sarah Pochin, and also Zia Youssef, the Reform Party chairman. You can watch all of those interviews online. But they spoke of a sense of betrayal. I just jotted down a couple of the comments that Sarah Pochin made in her speech. And she said, enough Tory failure, enough Labour lies. She went on to say that people had voted for change. Of course, change is what Labour promised and are still promising. She also said that people just want fairness. Obviously, cost of living, a huge issue here. Also, immigration. There's been an asylum hotel, very controversial, that has been closed down. She spoke a lot about that as well. So look, yes, Reform have edged it by a tiny margin, but what does it say that one of Labour's supposedly safest seats, I think it was their 49th safest seat in the country, has been taken by Reform? Sure, it's 4 years out from a general election. Sure, lots of things can change, but certainly today is a great day for Reform and a pretty awful day for the current sitting government. We expect it to be a pretty awful day for the Conservatives as well later, and probably a good day for the Liberal Democrats.
Now, Catherine, this is a very interesting local election, for the main reason that so few elections are actually happening. Obviously, we've had this major result in the by-election, but I think, I can't remember how many exactly local authorities are up for election. I think it's only 14, and one of the main reasons for that is that so many have been deferred to next year because of the big shake-up that Angela Rayner has announced. And as a result of that, most of the councils up for grabs today are Tory councils, so the Conservatives have the most to lose. But do you think that will make any difference in how Conservative voters interpret this result?
Look, I think at the end of the day, we won't get all the results into probably tea time. We'll get the bigger picture this evening, but I expect today will be pretty awful for the Conservatives. Of course, they were riding high, weren't they, back in 2021? Boris Johnson, the height of the vaccine bounce. It seems such a long time ago now. The Conservatives won, I think, about 1,000 of those 1,600 council seats. Now, they're now expecting to lose half or probably more. I was at the Conservative local election launch with Kemi Badenoch a few weeks ago. She was very downbeat because she said, realistically, if you put a map of the last general election onto a map of those council seats, the Conservatives would be left with hardly any. So I think the Lib Dems, we're not hearing much about them at the moment, but I think they're likely to have a pretty good afternoon. And the problem for the Conservatives, if they were eaten by Reform, those red wall seats that divided the vote and handed Labour lots of seats in the last general election. And they're being eaten down south in their heartlands by the Liberal Democrats. So for Kemi Badenoch trying to rebuild her party, it's incredibly difficult for her. But I think, too, Labour will be extremely worried about this result in Runcorn and Helsby. They threw everything at this. Pretty much every Labour cabinet minister was here. The Prime Minister was not here. That was a deliberate choice because they decided, as Zia Youssef said, that he's not terribly popular up here. And I have to say, speaking to somebody when I arrived yesterday, they were not keen on Labour at all, not keen on the Prime Minister, a real feeling of disaffection, and that just things are not working, things are broken, people don't feel they've got the opportunities. So yes, are we looking now at something very different to what we've had before, the two main parties in power going from one to the other and back and forth? It seems now there is a real splintering of the vote, not just Tories and Labour, but Reform surging in the polls, also the Lib Dems, and of course the Greens.
OK, Catherine, for now, thanks very much indeed. Well, Catherine mentioned earlier on that she was talking to Nigel Farage a little bit earlier. This is what he had to say.
We are not a protest party, even though there isn't much to protest about. No, the vibe, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn this country around. We recognise it's in decline, we can do better, we're positive people, we're different people. And you know, our candidate that has won here is somebody that 30 years ago, Parliament was full of people like her, who'd had successful careers, as she's had in business, in politics, in the judiciary, and now there are very few of them. So I think what we're doing is we're putting candidates up, getting people elected with real life experience, and that's what voters want more and more.
Last summer, people booted the Tories out wanting change. Labour, now people are cross with them. You're promising change, but now you're going to have to deliver. Are you confident you're going to be able to do that?
Well, we couldn't do worse than the previous lot in running county councils. We will, where we win county councils, send in the auditors, examine long-term contracts, end crazy expenditure on consultants, on part-time workers, county councils fighting climate change, pursuing DEI, buying ergonomic chairs for their staff. No. As and where we win, it's going to be very different.
And just finally, you've got your first female MP. Some people have thought you're a bit of a boys' club. Do you think you can change that perception?
We've just won here with Sarah Pachin. We're on the verge of Dame Andrea Jenkins becoming the mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. And since the general election, of those that have come to us, it's 50-50 men and women. I know some think I've got a woman problem, but it's not true.
It's interesting, isn't it? Loads of you getting in touch this morning, and I think some of them really hit the mark. Sally, morning Sally, says, I don't think these elections are so much about high taxes as more for immigration out of control and two-tier policing that we have. It seems if you're white and British, you're penalised. People have had enough. And it's that people have had enough element that just whatever you... It just doesn't seem fair anymore, and whether politicians think you're right or wrong in feeling you're being unfairly treated, if that's the sense in the country, it's going to make a difference.
Yep, Tim says the only way the Tories will get back into power is if they work with Reform. If they don't, Reform will destroy not only Labour but the Tories. I mean, that's very much a sensible position, but both Reform and the Tories, of course, have ruled it out. What just seems so demoralising for people is they were fed up of the Conservatives. A lot of it was because of immigration, but also because of high tax and spend after COVID. And actually, Labour have come in, immigration's got worse, public spending's got higher.
And more taxes have come in.
Exactly. So the Conservatives might be singing a different tune now, but why would people trust them to be different in power?
Well,
so now they're putting their trust in Reform. But, of course, big question marks about whether Reform could deliver any of that change.
Well, keep your thoughts coming through. gbnews.com/yours say. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to the winner of the mayoral election in Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. There is heavy congestion on the M62 westbound between junction 27 and junction 26, with delays of around 15 minutes. The M4 westbound remains closed from junction 25A Grove Park to junction 28 Tredegar Park due to planned maintenance work, with diversions in place. Be mindful of this if you are planning to travel in the area. Please drive carefully wherever you are in the UK. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic flypast.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
All right, well, what a night it's been. We've had a win for Reform in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election by 6 votes. We've had a win for Reform in the Mayoral election in Lincolnshire by 50-odd thousand votes. I mean, we're going to talk to Dame Andrea Jenkins, the winner of that Mayoral election, shortly. Chris Hope is here in the studio, our political editor. I mean, it's interesting to look at this and say, is this a night where we say it's been huge wins for Reform? Is it a night where we say it's been a bad night for Labour? Is it been a bad night for the Tories? What's the assessment?
It's a bad night for both the two main parties. I mean, look at Greater Lincolnshire, how badly the Tories did there, and they fought that one. Look how badly Labour did in the Runcorn by-election. They lost that. They lost an MP. That's a disaster for their party. It was the 49th safest seat at the general election, the landslide election, just 10 months ago. It's a complete wake-up call, I think, for the main parties. Also, I'm struck, I think, by the challenge faced by Nigel Farage. He says he's not a protest party, but really, in terms of MPs, he is a protest party. Are we going to see now more organisation, portfolios for different of his 5 MPs? Who's in charge of the economy? Who's in charge of home affairs? Who's in charge of health? Who do we go to? That's what we don't have at the moment, and that was the criticism labelled at his party by Rupert Lowe, because the disaffected independent MP now. He was right in that sense.
But do you need that when a party is, in parliamentary terms, that small?
I think when you have a party... If a party is that small and it's a protest party, you don't need it. If a party has pretensions on being a governing party, then that's possible. I've been sending here some forecasts on what this vote would mean at the general election. It would give the Reform UK party a huge majority. Big beasts who would fall were the Reform UK by-election replicated at a general election. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, Rachel Reeves, she's out. Liz Kendall, work and pensions, she's gone. Yvette Cooper, Home Secretary, she loses her seat. John Healey, Defence Secretary. Pam McFadden, the Cabinet Office Minister. These people, big beasts, these heads are rolling if this Runcorn result is reflected in the general election.
Of course, people would say by-elections very rarely reflect what's coming up in the general election, but what's different about this is it's not the opposition party that has benefited from the government's malaise, but Reform have a huge advantage here, don't they? They have no record to defend. So going into the next election, nobody can say, oh, well, you're saying this, but last time you were in power, you did this, which is, of course, what the Conservatives are going to face. So is it going to be just plain sailing ahead for Reform now?
It will be for a while, but as you said earlier, they will be getting power over budgets. There'll be choices made, decisions made about spending, and also there'll be scrutiny on these councillors. And if they put a foot wrong, the two main parties will jump on that. And I think they'll be punished much more than other parties because they're so new. But let's look at what the Labour Party are saying. They're saying, particularly in Runcorn, it's a narrow defeat, but they need to work harder and quicker with their plan for change. That is a challenge for Labour, but will it be enough?
What is interesting, though, is you said there's not enough structure in reform yet. And
there's none.
Right. And people will accept that. But what the other two main parties don't seem to be doing is saying, you look at the polls riding high for reform, why are people so fed up, and what can we change to address that, to try and win them back? And they don't seem to be doing that.
They don't get it. I think that the more they talk of change, the less it's happening. So we have this plan for change from the Labour Party, but in a sense, they've carried on where the Tories left off. There's more tax, not less tax. Immigration, or the small boats crisis, certainly is getting worse, not better. I think net migration is coming down, but largely because of measures brought in the last months of the last Tory government. So they talk of change, it's not happening. The idea of this uni party, with an idea on the social media, but they're both the same, I think that you are seeing that, and Reform are saying we're completely different, and they have a freedom of movement, Miriam and Steve, don't they, where they can say what they like because they're not in power, and they will benefit. And you hear, don't you, from the Tories, we're in a marathon. It's not a marathon at all. It's a sprint for attention, and the Tories are nowhere.
And yet what we're seeing now, and certainly since the advent of social media, is how quickly things can change. That old party allegiance where people stuck with one party for their whole lives, that's completely gone. And we saw Boris Johnson's massive majority in 2019 disappear in just 5 years. So things look terrible for the Conservatives now. They look pretty good for Reform. But, you know, small things that change can really shift the vibe now because of, you know, social media communication. So who knows where we'll be in 4 years' time, frankly.
But it's looking pretty good for Reform right now. But don't forget the SDP back in the early 80s. That's when they were on like 42% against, I think, the Tories on 31%. You know, you had a protest party then. And so
some big names.
And the Falklands happened. And that drove support back. So, you know, with Farage, or question marks about his remarks about Putin in 2014, he disavows them now. I think he's moving away from Trump. He hasn't spoken to Trump or anyone in the White House since January. He sees the damage, how unpopular Trump is in this country. He looks at Mark Carney. Thinks, I don't want that to happen to me. So he's boxing very clever. He's pro-deportations. He's trying to move into the sort of centre ground. But he's very hard. Who is he going after? Is it Tory voters or Labour voters or someone else altogether? And it looks like that for the result overnight, the latter.
Yeah, OK. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Still to come, we're going to be talking to Charlie Rowley and Scarlett Maguire to talk us through this night of politics, and hopefully we'll be talking to Dame Andrea Jenkins, who's just won that mayoral election in Greater Lincolnshire for Reform UK as well. But first, if you fancy a bit of holiday sun, here's the forecast for the top European hotspots.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
An unsettled spell across southwestern parts of Europe, bringing heavy rain and thunderstorms, but elsewhere plenty of warm sunshine, and it should be largely dry across the Canary Islands, Madeira, but as we head towards Portugal, Spain, southwestern parts of France, very unsettled with heavy showers and thundery outbreaks. But across Rome, the Adriatic coastline, much of Greece, it should be largely dry and plenty of sunshine. Now we could see some heavy showers move into northern parts of Rome on Sunday, but otherwise largely dry and temperatures in the low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Ranjit Mathrani. Ranjit, welcome to the show. You're being booted out by the Crown Estate. What's going on?
Well, the answer is I don't know, because they keep on giving different reasons on different occasions with one simple objective, to get us out of the premises. And the irony is that 1 year before they decided not to terminate our lease, they actually invited us to take over more space on the first floor of the restaurant. And then they dramatically changed their mind. I'm sorry about the background noise, I'm the evidence. They dramatically changed their mind after a blocked drain, which they blamed on us, which wiped out their electrics. And they claim they needed space, 11 square meters of the space for their entrance. On other occasions, they claim they need the space in order to do the refurbishment works. Neither of those arguments are very convincing. They could have a reception space if they wanted to on the first floor, and they could work around us, as many landlords have done in refurbishing the offices.
So, Ranjit, if I may interject, Ranjit, if I may interject, we don't have a great deal of time left. Ostensibly, they're trying to hike up your rent, and you think they're using a backdoor method of doing so to get you out. You're an institution in London.
We are indeed an institution. Not only that, we are a living institution. You know, we were invited to cater for the Queen on 2 occasions, but in Paris, she in fact agreed to have dinner with us before COVID struck.
GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Exciting morning.
It is an exciting morning. Charlie Rowley and Scarlett Maguire are here to analyse every little bit of it. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
Overly, what a night for the Tories. Disaster.
Well...
every which way, it would seem.
Well, yes, that's what we're expecting, but we'll never...
Well, that's no excuse, is it?
Well, no.
Because what it seems to imply is that, you know, under new management, you know, with a break from the past, Kemi Bader doesn't seem to be cutting through.
No, I mean, I think if we go back 4 years when the last locals were, it was on the back of, I think, a Boris bounce, the vaccine bounce. And so I think since then, obviously, Tories got absolute kicking at the last general election, rightly so. And so I think, you know, it takes a bit of time maybe to get back.
Well, it was going to be out, but you need to look at like the mayoral election. I know we keep bleating on about it, but, I mean, the Tories ploughed everything into that. They've got pretty much half the votes.
This is the Lincolnshire one.
Lincolnshire, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's alarming. Obviously, if you were a Conservative, if you're sitting at CCHQ now, you want to make sure that you're getting those votes out. But what would be even more alarming, I think, is if Labour had won the Runcorn by-election and with the Tories sitting on 2,000 votes, which is pitiful, and they were never going to win it anyway, but that would really play into the message, vote Conservative, get reform. That is something that would, I think, if you would be a Conservative, you know, you'd be...
A vote Conservative, get Labour, you mean?
Sorry, exactly,
yeah,
sorry, yes, had Labour won, sorry, absolutely right. My mistake. So, you know, you would be sitting there thinking, my God, you'd be choking on your cornflakes thinking, are we really actually part of a party that is now letting Labour in through the back door when the whole point of being in His Majesty's opposition is to stop the Labour government? So that would be something, I think, up and down the country, councillors and council seats, people will be looking at how Conservatives performed. At what point did they stop more reform candidates winning, or where is the balance of the power lying? And I think you've got to then conclude at some stage that when it gets to a general election, you have to make some sort of, whether it's a pact, whether it's some sort of
reform won't do it.
Well, if it's an unspoken agreement, I mean, the Tories can probably decide for themselves that actually we're just going to take votes away. And, you know, for example, in the west of England, now, there's not a hope in hell for the Tories, I think, to do any particularly well there. In Doncaster as well, I think, you know, that Tory vote, if it had withdrawn, where are those votes going to go?
But Doncaster's a really interesting example because bringing Scarlett here, the Conservative candidate was Nick Fletcher, who was the Don Valley MP, popular MP, obviously lost his seat. But it was a popular local MP, and also he did a lot for the airport. But we'll come back to that. We've got Andrea Jenkins live from
Scarlett.
Grimsby. Andrea, congratulations. Well done. A long night, but also a hard-fought campaign. What are your major priorities going to be as mayor going forward?
First of all, I'd like to say, now Perda's out the way, it's great to be on GB News again. I've missed you guys. Look, my priorities is about restoring trust for the public. I'm going to be forming a transport for Lincolnshire, just like we have a transport for London, but there'll be no diversity officers on my transport for Lincolnshire. It'll be key strategic decision makers to finally fix the infrastructure problems across Lincolnshire. A big thing for me, I know that people are struggling. We've got some of the most highest energy costs in the world. I want to look at the balance sheet, I want to look at the tendering process, I want to look at the local government contracts to ensure that every penny of taxpayers' money across Lincolnshire is well spent so that I can keep council tax low for them and deliver for them.
It's interesting because you become instantly one of the most senior members of Reform UK. It's certainly the person with the biggest budget at their disposal. Do you agree with the analysis that says if Reform is going to start making significant electoral progress, you need to start having a bit more structure in there, having someone talking about home affairs, about health, about foreign affairs?
Look, I mean, we've seen how Rupert's just been attacking Reform, but how he describes Reform, I have not seen this. It's so professional, right down to the training that our council candidates have had. We've got briefing packs ready to and support to help our newly elected councillors along the way. We're doing things properly, and the whole outfit is professional. Of course, we are working on policies. I mean, look, we've seen our net zero policy released. We've seen our illegal migration policy. But I'd say, look, we're 4 years away from election. Quite often, political parties are not working on stuff like this this far out from election, but we are.
Andrew, do you think there's a danger for Reform here as well as an immense opportunity? I mean, a hugely successful night for Reform, not just in terms of seats won probably, but also vote share. But do you think that that brings with it a danger as well? Because Reform have very much moved now from a party of protest to a potential party of government. Do you think that additional scrutiny over, for example, how councils are run is going to be a problem?
No, because look, I've been at the table with Zia, Nigel, Richard for months since I came across to Reform. We're planning, we've got measures in place, and we're not going to fail on this. This is a pivotal moment for Reform because, as you said, we're going to get power. And to me, it's about leading with a sword of common sense to demonstrate that we have a blueprint here in Lincolnshire, which we then can take forward in government. And there's these pivotal moments. We've got the Welsh elections next year, we've got the Scottish elections leading up to a general election. So I see these as not pitfalls, as opportunities to build on this momentum of what we've already got so far.
Brace yourself for is I mean, the scrutiny is one thing, but the knives are going to be out. I mean, as you've seen in your campaign, you know, the knives are really going to come out, and you're going to have some, and your candidates are going to have some very thick skin.
No, absolutely. I mean, as I said in my speech, I thought it was important to address this, because, do you know something? It's been soul-destroying, this campaign. As I said in my speech, I've fought 4 general elections, 3 local elections, and it's been horrible. It's been personal. I mean, the Conservatives have called the police on me. We've had them saying I'm sleeping with political allies. We've had the independent candidate who's even, her husband even had complained to the council, and there was a hearing and our barrister had to get involved. It's been completely dirty, and I think that I think this has probably demonstrated this result, really, that people are switched off by dirty tactics, and it's about restoring that trust. You know, dirty politics does not work, or it'll only work short term, and we've got to listen to the people and deliver for them, and this is why they've got a vote. You know, they kick people out when, I mean, look, I got kicked out as a Conservative MP. I trust in the electorate, and I will not let the people of Lincolnshire down.
Andrea, you know how difficult it is to be in government, and it's certainly true that the last Conservative government made some unforced errors over things like immigration. But nevertheless, there are some other things that are far, far more difficult to fix. I mean, one of the reasons that taxes are so high is because we have an ageing population. That's not something that anybody, even Reform, can do anything about. How is Reform going to manage expectations about what a potential Farage premiership could actually achieve?
Look, as I said, I'm blown away by the professionalism of Reform, how they're planning, and you'll see more policies released over the coming months, the coming years, and we will deliver. Look, we are well aware of the major issues. As you know, look, I was in government, I was there in the Whip's office trying to defend Boris when, you know, key people in his party was bringing him down. I know how tough politics is, and it's probably been a good grounding for me to get through this campaign. And so I know how tough it can be. Reform will continue to be attacked, but I think the narrative will start changing when, especially with mainstream media as well, when they see that we start delivering.
Dame Andrea, it's Christopher Hope here in the studio with Miriam and Stephen. What's
Hello,
the future? Hi, good to see you. What's the future, do you think, for Reform UK? You're a former, as you said there, a Conservative minister. People think that Reform and the Tories should get together, but is that almost like a wrong argument now, looking at the support your party's winning from Labour supporters? Do you think there's a future for a Reform Tory ticket, or is your party gone beyond that?
No, as you know, Christopher, I've been interviewed by you last year. I was trying to, at the time before the general election, unite both parties to stop a Labour supermajority. However, having been on the inside of Reform, we don't need that. I mean, what I think is amazing about Reform is, as you said, the ability to pull from Labour and Conservative. But what I think is actually uniting people from those two parties to come to Reform is, look, it's our country, it's belief in our country, it's fairness in society, it's not wanting to be back of the queue, it's about strong policing, strong defence, and a sense of what is right. And these key things, key threads, is what unites working class Labour and traditional Tories. And this, look, Thatcher did this, didn't she? She pulled off Labour in '79, and I believe with quite similar type of, I guess, grounding. And I do genuinely believe that, having seen how we can pull from both parties, that Nigel will become Prime Minister at the next election.
OK. Dame Andrea Jenkins, very good to talk to you this morning. You must be absolutely shattered. I hope you get a good few hours sleep. Thanks very much.
I'm going to sleep now. I mean, do you know my outfit?
It's very nice.
My outfit looked very good at 3 a.m. this morning, but I'll keep it simple.
We've got to leave it. Thanks a lot. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Some more cloud around today, a risk of showers and feeling a little cooler across northern areas, but otherwise there's plenty of warm sunshine to go around, particularly across the south. Now, through the early hours of the morning across the southwest, there could be some low cloud, but this eventually easing away through the morning. The odd shower possible across central and southern parts, but this should be very isolated. The bulk of the showers are going to be across the very far north of Scotland, with more cloud here, but otherwise many should see a largely dry end to the week and feeling warm still, highs around 26 degrees Celsius across the southeast, just a little cooler across Scotland, northern parts of England, but still feeling pleasant in any sunnier spells. To finish off the day, more clouds still across northern parts of Scotland, still plenty of showers sweeping their way eastwards, a little drier across southern parts of Scotland, and a largely dry and bright end to the day across Northern Ireland too. Northern England might just see a little bit more cloud, particularly across eastern areas, but central and southern parts once again should see a largely dry end to the day, though still the chance of the odd shower just creeping in across the far south to finish off the day. But any showers mostly easing away for the first part of the evening, but we're going to see more and more cloud continue to feed its way into Scotland, more showers moving through here, and also some showery outbreaks just starting to clip their way into the very far southwest through the earlier hours of the morning, and these could be potentially quite heavy, but overall largely dry and still a fairly mild night to come. Now, we do need to keep an eye on this area across the southwest. Some heavy showers just pushing up across southern counties. They could turn heavy, potentially quite thundery as we head through the course of the morning, but most of the thunderstorms perhaps may just stay out across the English Channel. But any showers across Scotland easing away, and once again many areas seeing a dry and bright day, a little cooler but still pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 21 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Rochdale is facing flooding issues on the M62 eastbound between junction 18 and junction 19, causing 1 out of 4 lanes to close. Normal traffic is expected around 9:45 this morning. Resurfacing work between junction 25 A Grove Park and junction 28 Tredegar Park has led to a closure on the M4 westbound. Diversions are in place to guide travellers around the area. To keep up to date with more travel news, stay tuned to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. In a nail-biting night for politics, Reform UK have won the Runcorn and Helsby by-election.
Sarah Joanne Pochin, Reform UK, 12,645.
Enough is enough. Yes, after a full recount and a lead of just 6 votes, Sarah Pochen will be the new MP, marking a significant shift in the history of this traditional Labour safe seat.
People are so fed up with the two main parties. They're not the two main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country.
Well, the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, says this momentous result proves they're not just a protest party.
We are not a protest party, even though there isn't much to protest about. No, the vibe, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn this country around.
Reform wins the Runcorn by-election and the Greater Lincolnshire mayoralty as the major parties take a drubbing, and there's more to come as counting is about to start in thousands of council seats.
And I do hereby declare that the said Andrea Marie Jenkins is duly elected as Mayor to the Greater Lincolnshire Combined Council Authority.
Yes, that was yet more good news for Reform UK. Dame Andrea Jenkins has won the Lincolnshire mayoral election.
Well, Labour wins the mayoral elections in Doncaster and the west of England despite record poll plunges. But the party faithful accept there is still work to be done.
Reform UK are the antithesis to everything I believe in, all right? They're the opposite of my politics. However, they do believe in something. They show that. They show that they have beliefs and that they stand by specific views and specific principles, supposedly, that they outline.
And it's looking like a very difficult night for the Conservatives.
As I said, 9 months ago, the British people resoundingly turfed us out of office with our worst defeat in our entire history. So we've got a long way to go before we start regaining the trust of the British people.
In other news this morning, Donald Trump will nominate Mike Waltz to serve as his UN ambassador after ousting him as National Security Advisor in the first White House shake-up of his second term.
And Prince Harry will today discover whether he's won a Court of Appeal challenge over his security arrangements whilst in the UK.
Russell Brand will appear in court today, charged with rape, indecent assault and sexual assault between 1999 and 2005, relating to 4 different women.
It was a memorable night for English clubs in Europe. Manchester United reigned in Spain as they blew away Athletic Bilbao in their Europa League semi-final first leg, while in the other semi, Tottenham beat Bodo Glimt to give themselves, or leave themselves rather, on course for an all-English final.
Hello there, good morning. A chance of the odd shower and feeling a little cooler for some today, but still plenty of warm sunshine to go around. Stay tuned and I'll be here with all the details.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Miriam Cates and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, what a night it has been in terms of the elections. That very, very close by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. A full recount, 6 votes in it in the end for Reform UK taking that. It's very, very tight with the Labour Party, but what it shows is how much support had fallen from the Labour Party. They had a 15,000 majority only in July at the general election. It's quite a significant shift.
And quite a decent turnout for a by-election. I think around 48%. It's normal to have about 30. So people pretty motivated to vote.
Yeah, they were. It's just been a fascinating night, and in terms of the mayoral elections, the Labour Party have retained a couple of those, but taken pretty to the wire with all of that. What's going to be interesting, of course, is the council elections, and the counting doesn't start till later on for all of those thousands of seats up for grabs. One party that is traditionally very good at local elections, Liberal Democrats. Let's talk to their deputy leader, Daisy Cooper. Good morning to you. I mean, in a sense, Daisy, you're still waiting for the fights that you were really in with a chance with.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think around 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be looking very closely for some of the results that we are looking forward to. I think in places like Shropshire, places like Oxfordshire and Devon as well, we are pretty hopeful that we can make some significant gains, particularly against the Conservatives, and that we may be able to replace the Conservatives as a larger party in local government and become the voice for Middle England.
What are the key differences that the Liberal Democrats offer compared to Labour and the Tories in terms of policy? What are your key selling points to voters?
Well, just recently we've been talking tough in terms of standing up to Donald Trump and his damaging trade war, and I think many people have responded to our calls to buy British and to stand tall in the world. In the general election and more recently we have been putting the NHS and social care as our #1 issue, forcing the government to go further and faster and calling on them to go further and faster on both fixing our crumbling hospitals, making sure people can see a GP within 7 days. Ed Davey himself, as our party leader, has spoken very movingly about his experience as a family carer and what drives him to make the Liberal Democrats the party of carers nationally. I think on all of these issues we've shown that we are a party that listens to what ordinary people are saying. We know how difficult people's lives are and we're demanding the change that people are desperately crying out for.
But Daisy, please.
No,
I was going to say, Daisy, I suppose a cynic would say, who would be against any of those things? Who's against better social care? Who is against more hospitals? Who is against buying British? Are you not just still a party of protest and people are voting Lib Dem in local elections because they're fed up of the Tories, they're fed up of Labour, and obviously in the areas where you're seeking to make gains, Reform aren't really an entity?
Well, I think if you look at the YouGov poll that came out shortly after the general election last year, the #1 reason why people said they voted for the Liberal Democrats was because we made the NHS and social care our #1 issue. People voted for our NHS and care policies because we know just how important that is to people's lives. And we're very concerned, for example, that Nigel Farage seems to want to privatise the NHS and introduce an American-style insurance system, which would crowd many people out from accessing the NHS altogether. So actually there are very, very stark differences. Of course, in many of our areas that we won at the general election and in these local elections, our main challenger is the Conservatives, and we are hoping to make significant gains from the Conservatives in these elections.
But when you look at a lot of the issues which are, that you highlight, and things like the NHS under so much strain, education is under so much strain, as we know, housing is under so much strain, is a lot of this not driven by, I mean, do you acknowledge it's driven by this huge amounts of immigration, net migration in this country?
I think we have a housing catastrophe in this country, and that is largely driven by the fact that we are not building the right kind of homes. We're not building social homes. We need to be building 150,000 social homes every single year. That was in our manifesto as a pledge. Under the Conservatives, between 2015 and 2024, they were only building 7,000 social homes a year. Unless you build social homes, you can't actually then have a knock-on impact in terms of how the rest of the housing stock is used. So that's absolutely critical. When it comes to the NHS, let's remember that actually there's a number of people who come to this country, and a huge part of our immigration statistics are people coming here to actually work in our NHS and to work in our care sector. Now, in the last general election, we Liberal Democrats were the only party calling for a higher minimum wage for care workers, a minimum wage that was higher for care workers than for anybody else, in order that we could actually attract more British people into the care sector so we could nurture our homegrown carers in this country. That is a very good example of where we have said, this is a good way, it's a good thing to do in and of itself, but it would also have a knock-on impact in terms of not needing to ask people to come over here to look after our loved ones and to prop up our broken care system. So actually, I think we have a sort of slightly different take on that, and there are solutions that we've put forward, and what we can see from the last general elections that people like those ideas too.
Well, Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, thank you so much. I know you'll be watching very closely for the rest of the day as some of those results come in, and of course we will be following them all live.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, the big news of the night is that Reform UK have won the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby, the first big defeat for Sir Keir Starmer since the general election last July.
Yes, it's been more success for Reform UK in the past hour too, with Andrea Jenkins making history as she becomes both the first mayor for Greater Lincolnshire and for Reform UK.
Meanwhile, overnight, Labour won North Tyneside, Doncaster and West of England mayoralty races, despite the fact that the polls plummeted and their share of the vote really took a hit.
Well, let's take a quick look at how some of our politicians have been reacting to this nail-biting night.
Is without a doubt the most important set of local elections in British history, for the primary reason that what it has shown is that the stranglehold that the two old parties have had on British politics for 100 years has been decisively broken.
People want the change that we promised in the general election. They can see some big steps toward that in the first 9 months, but they want a lot more.
I mean, it has been a long night, and we were bracing ourselves for a challenging night because, of course, many of the results that will be coming in today are based off the cycle of 2021, where we had an unprecedented victory. We got 66%, I think, of all seats up. We were winning seats. We won the Hartlepool by-election on the same day. So 4 years later, in a very different circumstance, having lost 2/3 of our MPs at last year's general election, of course, we were bracing ourselves for a very difficult night.
We are not a protest party, even though there is much to protest about. No, the vibe, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn this country around.
People are so fed up with the two main parties. They're not the two main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country.
We're not going to fail on this. This is a pivotal moment for reform because, as you said, we're going to get power. And to me, it's about leading with a sort of common sense.
All right, let's break all that down a little bit for you with our political editor, Christopher Hope. Just not an easy job, Chris, to break it all down. So, what's your assessment at this stage?
Well, two things have happened so far. I mean, you've got the Runcorn by-election, which Reform won by 6 votes against a really a strong attempt to win it by the Labour Party. They threw the kitchen sink at that. Most cabinet ministers campaigned there, apart from, of course, the leader, Sir Keir Starmer. That's a blow. Look there at Greater Lincolnshire, the Mayoral tin. You saw Dame Andrea Jenkins winning that. That's a blow for the Conservatives. And you heard just then from Daisy Hooper, the deputy leader of Lib Dem, saying that through the day, as counting starts in about an hour's time on thousands of council seats, will Lib Dems push the Tories into 3rd place and they become the party in Middle England? I think it's the political tectonic plates are shifting against the major parties in favour of the challenger parties.
What's really interesting is how Reform have managed to pick up all these different groups of voters. So in Lincolnshire, for example, the main issues are immigration and farming. It's a very, very rural county. Well, clearly people don't trust the Conservatives there anymore on those issues, so they've moved to Reform. But in places like Runcorn, and perhaps we're going to see more urban areas later, it's immigration, yes, but also things like cost of living, loss of trust. Again, people are moving to Reform from Labour. How can Reform keep all these groups happy?
Yes, well, that's a challenge of any major party. The Tories have faced that problem, and Labour have too. And how do you keep all these different groups happy and content with the direction and way forward? I mean, how they use power, how Andrea Jenkins is now the most important Reform politician, apart from the leader, I think, with that huge budget in Greater Lincolnshire. What choices will she make? How will they go down? Will this party actually take over some of the dozen or so Tory councils, which could well be lost by that party today? Power is going towards Reform UK, and how they exercise it will be under huge scrutiny.
What we can't do, of course, is ignore the fact that Labour has won 3 or retained 3 mayors, 3 big seats. I mean, that's important, isn't it? But they've still taken a big hit on those.
I mean, narrowly. Look at those numbers here. Doncaster won by 700, turnout of 73,000 voters there. They won by 700 over Reform. North Tyneside, 444. Again, 53,000 people voting there. West of England, 200,000 voting there. The biggest by far, 6,000 majority or so. Labour over Aaron Banks, the Reform UK candidate, who barely wanted to win. He was saying, if I'll appoint a deputy to run it, we should scrap the whole thing. He was kind of anti the idea, the anti-candidate. Yeah, extraordinary. They are doing it. I mean, I think it's worth stressing, of course, that it's a protest by-elections. Margaret Thatcher lost a lot of by-elections and then won 3 landslides through the 80s. I mean, it can happen that we have these protests, but right now, I think we're moving almost beyond. The idea of the Tory-Reform merger is an idea that does the rounds in Westminster bars and hostelries. But are we moving beyond that? Looking at the support the Reform are winning from Labour, it's very hard for both parties to take on this sort of shape-shifting Nigel Farage party.
I think what's really important to remember, though, is this is the same thing that's happening across the Western world. This kind of dissatisfaction with the mainstream parties, people being disappointed with globalism, with immigration, with, high debt ratios, all these kind of things. And it works out differently in different countries. You know, Donald Trump has very astonishingly been able to capitalise on that within an existing party, the Republicans. But it's different in Germany, in France. There are new parties, challenger parties springing up that are getting close to winning power. And that's just what we're seeing here. It's the same as everywhere else in the West, isn't it?
Trump did it by speaking to an overlooked group of people, making people voted for Trump who never voted before.
Yep.
In the same way, I think, with Farage, he's speaking, I think, to an overlooked group of people. I would say at GB News, we speak for that overlooked group of people, I think, who feel that the mainstream broadcasters and others don't listen to them. I think we're the channel they go to, and I think Farage sees that with Reform UK.
With all of this, though, I mean, this is a real shot across the bows for the two main parties. Are either of them listening? I mean, the statement from the government, the Labour Party, this morning, just seems to be blaming everything on the Tories. At what point does Sir Keir Starmer, and indeed Kemi Badenoch, say we need to start listening to what people are saying?
That's right. I mean, the response, I think, overnight from the Labour Party spokesman, not a named individual, they're saying that, of course, by-elections are difficult. They're saying, but we need to move faster with the plan for change. I think much of the frustration with Labour has been they talk about change, but nothing's happening. It seems to be that the continuity politics from the last government, which had huge tax increases, uncontrolled net migration and illegal migration. We're seeing certainly the latter under Labour and maybe the former, as we see figures coming out, but certainly hundreds of thousands of people arriving here. Where are they going to live? What's in it for me? I was also struck by the responses by the new Sarah Poachin, the new MP for Runcorn. She's saying that people sit here and look at all the spending in the south. We have to pay money to cross a bridge to go to the cinema, to go to the leisure centre. That's a Runcorn suspension bridge. Why is that fair? Why is money being spent elsewhere, not where we are? And I think that's surprising from this Labour government.
Yeah, OK. Chris, thank you. Let's just head to Runcorn, should we, and talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Morning, Catherine.
Yes, good morning. What an extraordinary night. We knew it was going to be close, but we were expecting this result about 3 o'clock in the morning. There was a recount, and in the end, Reform won it by just 6 votes. That's the narrowest margin in a by-election since the Second World War. Even more astonishing, this was the 49th safest Labour seat in the country. Just 10 months ago, Labour won this with a majority of almost 15,000. How things change, and change very, very fast. Now, I interviewed a triumphant Nigel Farage. He was here yesterday, here again today for the result. Let's have a look at some of what he had to say.
We are not a protest party, even though there is much to protest about. No, the vibe, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn this country around. We recognise it's in decline. We can do better. We're positive people. We're different people. And you know, our candidate that has won here is somebody that 30 years ago, Parliament was full of people like her, who'd had successful careers, as she's had in business, in politics, in the judiciary, and now there are very few of them. So I think what we're doing is we're putting candidates up, getting people elected with real life experience, and that's what voters want more and more.
Last summer, people booted the Tories out wanting change. Labour, now people are cross with them. You're promising change, but now you're going to have to deliver. Are you confident you're going to be able to do that?
Well, we couldn't do worse than the previous lot in running county councils. We will, where we win county councils, send in the auditors, examine long-term contracts, end crazy expenditure on consultants, on part-time workers, county councils fighting climate change, pursuing DEI, buying ergonomic chairs for their staff. No. As and where we win, it's going to be very different.
And just finally, you've got your first female MP. Some people have thought you're a bit of a boys' club. Do you think you can change that perception?
We've just won here with Sarah Poachin. We're on the verge of Dame Andrea Jenkins becoming the mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. And since the general election, of those that have come to us, it's 50-50 men and women. I know some think I've got a woman problem, but it's not true.
we couldn't do any worse. That's what Nigel Farage said when asked about the fact that he's now got to deliver in some of these council victories that they're having across the country. And that was a sentiment that I heard on the election campaign trail last year before the general election from person after person talking about the Conservatives and saying, well, we might give Labour a go because they can't be any worse. What a very, very, very low bar. I also interviewed Reform's first female MP, the new MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Let's have a look now at some of what she said.
People are so fed up with the two main parties. They're not the two main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country. What we've done here in Runcorn and Helsby is made history tonight, overturning that a massive Labour majority, and I think it's a sign that people are fed up with both parties. They feel let down by the Tories, let down by Labour, and the Labour have only been in for 10 months, but they're ready for change, and we are going to provide that party of hope.
Immigration has been one of the big issues here, hasn't it? Can you tell us a bit about that and what else people have been talking about on the doorstep?
Immigration is massive here. Runcorn feels like a dumping ground for illegal immigrants. We've had the Daresbury Hotel, we've got houses of multiple occupancy, so it's a big issue, and people feel unsafe on streets in certain parts of the constituency because of that. So that's definitely something, as you know, very much part of our agenda to tackle that problem.
Now, of course, this was a by-election that had to be fought because the then Labour MP Mike Amesbury, drunken on a night out, punched a constituent and had to go. So very inauspicious circumstances. But we've had comments through from Labour this morning. I'll just read you a bit of that. By-elections are always difficult for the party in government. The events which led to this one being called made it even harder. Voters are still rightly furious with the state of the country after 14 years failure and clearly expect the government to move faster with the plan for change. Goes on to say there are encouraging signs that our plan for change is working. A bit more information, but they say too, while Labour has suffered an extremely narrow defeat, the shock is that the Conservative vote has collapsed. Well, yes, they might be saying that, but I think it is a shock too for Labour. In the general election, Reform helped Labour to win a lot of seats from the Conservatives. Now very clearly, Reform are coming and winning Labour seats as well.
Final word from Christopher Hope. It just seems like the government are walking about with their fingers in their ears a little bit to all of this.
Yes, more change more quickly is hardly a response, I think, to this tectonic plate shifting in politics. I'm on the way now to interview the Prime Minister. A couple of questions for GB News viewers. What would you both ask him?
When is he going to speak the truth on immigration? Because they keep saying we're going to smash the gangs, but they're not going to smash the gangs. And if they do smash the gangs, more gangs will spring up. When are they going to actually talk about detaining and deporting people?
And I'd ask him about the farmers' issue and pensioners and just say, why do you not listen to the concerns?
Yeah.
Why are you ignoring all the protests in London from farmers, and yet the government just seems to stick their head in the sand and say, well, we're not going to, it's all just going to happen anyway. You know, it's about listening to people, isn't it? And that's where Reform is doing quite well, because whether they can deliver or not, we'll have to wait and see. But they appear to be listening to concerns, and that's what's
a huge challenge to both main parties. It's not really a Tory problem anymore. It's both main parties, and Reform are coming for them.
Well, we look forward to seeing your interview with Sir Keir a little bit later on, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Right, move away from all of this, and let's see what's happening with your weather today with Anna.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Some more cloud around today, a risk of showers and feeling a little cooler across northern areas, but otherwise there's plenty of warm sunshine to go around, particularly across the south. Now, through the early hours of the morning across the southwest, there could be some low cloud, but this eventually easing away through the morning. The odd shower possible across central and southern parts, but this should be very isolated. The bulk of the showers are going to be across the very far north of Scotland, with more cloud here, but otherwise many should see a largely dry end to the week and feeling warm still. Highs around 26 degrees Celsius across the southeast, just a little cooler across Scotland, northern parts of England, but still feeling pleasant in any sunnier spells. To finish off the day, more clouds still across northern parts of Scotland, still plenty of showers sweeping their way eastwards, a little drier across southern parts of Scotland, and a largely dry and bright end to the day across Northern Ireland too. Northern England might just see a little bit more cloud, particularly across eastern areas, but central and southern parts once again should see a largely dry end to the day, though still the chance of the odd shower just creeping in across the far south to finish off the day. But any showers mostly easing away for the first part of the evening, but we're going to see more and more cloud continue to feed its way into Scotland, more showers moving through here, and also some showery outbreaks just starting to clip their way into the very far southwest through the earlier hours of the morning, and these could be potentially quite heavy, but overall largely dry and still a fairly mild night to come. Now, we do need to keep an eye on this area across the southwest. Some heavy showers just pushing up across southern counties. They could turn heavy, potentially quite thundery as we head through the course of the morning, but most of the thunderstorms perhaps may just stay out across the English Channel. But any showers across Scotland easing away, and once again many areas seeing a dry and bright day, a little cooler but still pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 21 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it does feel like summer is finally on the way. I was in St James Park yesterday and it was about 25 degrees, absolutely packed. Do you know how much a 99 ice cream is, though, in St James Park?
No.
£5. £5 for a 99.
You're joking?
Oh, yeah, I'm not kidding.
I can't. That's ridiculous.
Anyway, one way to get a free holiday would be to enter our competition. This is our biggest ever Great British giveaway. That's right, your chance to win for both motorhome worth over £67,000.
Yes, plus the equivalent of 1,000 99s. It's £5,000 in tax-free cash, so 72 grand in total. It could all be yours. Here's how you enter.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still to come, we're going to be getting the picture from across the country for all those crucial local election results. That's all coming up.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You know, has Britain just got so addicted to DEI everything? I mean, you know, as you said, merit. I mean, I believe in meritocracy. You know, I don't think anyone would want to be told you got a job over someone else because of your skin colour or your ethnicity or your religion. But are we just addicted to this now, Charlotte? What's going on here? We've seen these stories every week.
I think you're so right. I think there's been a habitual pattern, especially, it is always government organisations or the police or NHS particularly, isn't it? And it's just become so ingrained now in society that I think when somebody puts together a job spec, they can't help but include this. It's just because they're afraid not to, perhaps, or it's just become completely de rigueur. And, actually, I think the time has come to think, people have to be employed in merit. As you say, it would be horrible to get a job and think I've just been employed because of my skin colour. And the other thing that I have a bit of a bugbear about with the NHS is, because I've had 3 children and I've been to many a maternity ward and waiting line, and it's fine to wait in line, but if you are non-English speaking and you need a translator, they put you to the front of the queue as well there. And that creates so many problems because I've seen literally, pregnant mums sort of scrapping about this.
Most of us use NHS services. We see very diverse faces, and we just want to be served by the person who's going to look after us the most. Is this evidence here, these NHS documents with American, DEI policies, just proof that we're taking too much over from America?
Yeah, I do think it's an NHS thing because, as we know, the NHS is completely bureaucratic beyond belief. And, of course, any opportunity to create another tick box exercise or another layer of paperwork you have to get through, they just seem to jump at the chance.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 8:31, good morning to you. Now, despite Labour taking a huge blow last night, one of their successes came in the west of England, where Helen Godwin won the mayoral race.
Yes, although the Labour candidate received only 25% of the vote there, she still squeezed to victory.
All right, let's talk to our reporter, Steve Bennett. Morning, Steve. What can you tell us?
Good morning to you both. Good morning, everyone. Yes, it was a close race, as you said, between 3 parties, Labour, Reform and Green. Early indications had been actually that it was going to be a Green success down here in this area, but proved not to be the case. As you mentioned there, 25% of the vote for Helen Godwin, and she is now in the position of Mayor of the west of England. She takes over from Dan Norris, of course, another Labour candidate. He was in from 2021. Now, the turnout for voting was 30% down, so it was down to 30% from 36.1% last time out. And some of the policies that Helen now has to deliver on is local bus services, train stations, increasing housing in this area, which has been a problem with the services to support it as well. So one of the issues they've had, particularly in Bristol, where I am now, is dwellers on the downs, because there's not enough homes for people to rent or live in, or affordable homes. So that'll be something I'm sure on Helen's list to tackle. In her winning comments, she said this morning that she was thrilled and excited to be in the position. She respected the fact that it was a very close race, but it gives them work to do, and she's looking forward to getting out there amongst the people and delivering on what she's promised. And as we mentioned there, Reform did come in second with Aaron Banks. He came in with 22.1% of the vote there. So some indications that maybe it was going to be a Reform win, but didn't prove to be. And instead, it stayed with Labour.
Now, tell us about the Green Party, because the west of England, Bristol, is increasingly an area of Green support, or it's certainly perceived to be. But the Greens didn't do so well, did they?
Exactly. And initially, when I was speaking to people during the week, and in fact yesterday, they were saying that they were predicting maybe it would be a Green win, because this is an area with loads of green spaces. They're very green friendly, particularly issues with the downs, as I've discussed. So it does come as kind of a surprise that they dropped down to third, when early anticipations were certainly that they would be up in the top 2, but turned out not to be the case.
OK. Steve, for now, thank you very much indeed. Now, if you are headed... It's Friday, isn't it, today? I've lost track of the days.
Yes, it must
It's
be.
been one of those
Friday.
weeks.
And it's May.
And it is May, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, and it's not bank holiday till Monday. So if you are travelling to work or school today, here's your traffic and travel update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M4 westbound is closed between junctions 25A at Grove Park and 28 Tredegar Park due to planned maintenance with diversions in place. Additionally, on the M62 eastbound, there is flooding between junction 18 and junction 19, reducing traffic to one lane out of 4. Drivers should anticipate normal conditions by around 9:45 this morning. Lastly, Greater London's M1 southbound between Junction 4 and Junction 1 is down to one lane following a road traffic collision. There are delays of approximately 15 minutes, with normal traffic conditions expected to resume by 8:45 this morning. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Well, still to come, triumph for British hopeful Jack Draper as he makes it into the world top 5. Well, Aidan will be here to tell us all about it. You're watching GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly-past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's 8:39 and Aidan is here with all the sport. Should we talk football? And I've got to start with, I hate to say it, but I've got to start with this Tottenham Bodo Glimt.
Yeah, why not?
Because we did a lot on it yesterday.
Yes.
And, you know, there was a lot of expectation.
Do you know where it is?
Bodo Glimt?
Yeah.
I do know. It's right in the very north. It's in the Arctic Circle.
It's 50 miles north of the Arctic Circle. Now, what's interesting...
It's closer to Madrid than it is to Oslo.
Is that, oh, yeah, it probably is, yeah.
Yeah.
It probably is. Do you know what else is interesting? What do you think the population of the...
50,000.
55.
You could fit it in the Tottenham Hotspur ground.
And still have 10,000 left.
It's funny I know all of this.
Oh, they've
impressive.
They've come a long way in the last few years.
It's almost like you've looked it up.
I actually have a friend who supports them. Can you believe that? Yeah, he comes over. He's come over this week. So he's disappointed last night, though, because they lost 3-1. Now, look, Manchester United also had an extraordinary result last night. They won 3-0 in Spain. They reigned in Spain, if you like, against Athletic Bilbao. They weren't expected to win there. The brief was basically to keep the score down and hope they get back to Old Trafford with a fighting chance of getting through. But they went and won. They were up against 10 men, but they performed brilliantly. It was like Man United of old. They were ruthless. And anyone who says, it's particularly Ruben Amorim here, as he said two nights ago in his press conference, he said, oh, the season isn't good enough. Winning the Europa League won't rescue that. It doesn't matter. Utter nonsense, because if they go and win that Europa League, not only is it a trophy, but they get into the Champions League, everything else will be forgotten. And I've been around football managers to know when they're lying. He's lying, trust me, because this will be an extraordinary result for them if they can see the job through next week. And it means that if Tottenham, who are also in the bump seat, as you mentioned, by beating Bodo Glimt, if they get through as well, we could see the two most underperforming sides in the Premier League meeting in the Europa League final. That would be extraordinary. And once again, I still don't think it's going to be enough to save Ange Postecoglou's job if they go and win it.
Even if they win it?
Even if they win it, yeah. Look, you can't have... We could have a situation where two sides finishing...
Can't win a trophy 15th, and then sack the manager, can
15th and 17th in the Premier League could end up in a European final. It has happened before. In 2019, Arsenal played Chelsea. Chelsea prevailing that night by 4-1. But a great night. We should mention Chelsea as well, winning their Europa League tie against their Europa Conference League tie against Djurgården of Sweden. They could go on and win that tournament as well. If they win it, they get into the Europa League. So overall, a fantastic night and some really good football played. And I should mention Luke Littler as well, because he's won 5 Premier League nights now, and he grew up in where?
Runcorn.
He did. Well, I told you that in the break. So
you better mention Jack Draper.
Yes, exactly. Quarter-final in Madrid. He's eased into the semi-final. But crucially, just winning that match means that he's in the top 5. And that's the first time that's happened since Andy Murray got there.
Does he give us a lot more hope, do you think? Because he does seem to be reasonably consistent.
He's consistent, he's very good. The only problem he has is sometimes illnesses get him down. It's a peculiar type of illness. It's not injuries, Miriam.
Okay.
He vomits on court sometimes, and it's a sign of nerves.
OK,
so
which is quite hard to get on top of.
Yeah, it is a little bit, yeah, but there are signs that he's combating this. And I think we're going to see a big hope for the future. That's my prediction.
Oh, well,
very good.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
It's always good to have a British person to cheer for at Wimbledon, isn't it?
Well, I think so, yeah. But it just seems to be a bit of a damp squib over recent years. I know Andy Murray did get us over the line in the end, but...
They were having a Wimbledon Grand Slam doesn't help the British players. People think that because we've got that prestigious Grand Slam, we should produce players, and we should, but they're just not going. The longer they wait to go into comprehensive schools and take players, the longer we will have the more often we will have fewer places, if that makes sense, fewer players to take the fight.
Yeah, it's all about the pipeline.
We have hope for young Mr. Draper. We do. All right, Aidan. Thank you. See you later. Still to come, Charlie Rowley and Scarlett Maguire will take us... I was going to say through the papers, but no, forget the papers today. It's taking us through the nail-biting night in politics. First, though, if, like these two, you fancy a bit of winter sun, here are the top European hotspots.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
An unsettled spell across southwestern parts of Europe, bringing heavy rain and thunderstorms, but elsewhere plenty of warm sunshine, and it should be largely dry across the Canary Islands, Madeira, but as we head towards Portugal, Spain, southwestern parts of France, very unsettled with heavy showers and thundery outbreaks. But across Rome, the Adriatic coastline, much of Greece, it should be largely dry and plenty of sunshine. Now we could see some heavy showers move into northern parts of Rome on Sunday, but otherwise largely dry and temperatures in the low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Jubes & Co. weekdays from 6 p.m.
Common sense, I would suggest, has finally prevailed. The World Athletics Association has announced that they will introduce mandatory sex testing for anyone competing in female competition. The Olympic legend Sharon Davis. Sharon, how do you feel about this?
Well, first of all, obviously extremely pleased. It's something I've been trying to get done for the last 10 years when the IOC changed the rules in 2015 and basically threw women's sport totally under the woke PC bus. On no peer-reviewed science whatsoever, and there's never been any peer-reviewed science ever in the world to show that we can remove male puberty advantage, and that's the whole reason why we have male and female races. You know, we can show that even in primary school children, little boys tend to run about 5% faster, and they jump and throw much further than little girls do. So we also have a Q angle, which is our angle from our hips to our knees. That's wider in a female for obvious reasons for childbirth. That puts more pressure on our knees, gives us more knee injuries, but allows males to have more cadence because obviously they're directly above their legs and their quads and their hamstrings, etc. So there's lots of benefits to being male that you can't remove by reducing testosterone, even if it was all the way through puberty.
This has also had a lot of criticism. Some people say, well, this is discriminatory to athletes that might have complex biological profiles, as they would call it. What would you say to that?
Well, it depends what you're calling complex biological profile. So if you were Caster Semenya, for example, you're biologically male, you're 46 ARD. So that means that you went through male puberty, you are male, but when you were born, sadly, you were picked up and they couldn't see your very small penis and your testes were internal. So they went, oh, this must be a female, we'll put a female on your birth certificate. But you're biologically male, and if that person had been born in this country, if there'd been any ambiguity, they would have given them a blood test and then known straight away.
The People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
8:47. Let's talk politics then, should we, with former Special Advisor for the Tories, Charlie Rowley, and former Labour Advisor, Scarlett Maguire. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right, what do we make of it all? Scarlett, start with you.
Well, it's not a great night for Labour, let's say, and there is no question that Labour's got to sort itself out. But
does that mean start listening to real people?
No. Labour does.
Oh, no.
Yes, Labour does listen. No, Labour does listen.
That's a good scoop there, Stephen.
Labour does listen, but actually delivering is tough. I mean, turning round the economy is very, very difficult. We have to turn around the economy before we can do all the things we want to do.
Worse, hasn't she, Rachel Reeves?
Well, that's what you say. I mean, actually...
Well, no, it's not what I say. I'm just a question.
No, I don't think she's made it worse at all. And what she's done is she's got a lot of people back to work. But what's more important is that if you look at...
Who's come back to work?
The teachers, the health people, the railway workers.
You mean that there are fewer strikes?
The strikers. I mean, that's the first thing that cost money, was that you actually had to pay them so that you know they got back to work. I mean,
to the unions. Then.
No, it's not about the unions. It's about the fact. I mean, teachers were feeling absolutely undervalued and underpaid, and they were underpaid. They'd been very, very low, if anything. So teachers and nurses were out, and actually, without proper, we were losing kids in schools.
Hang on, because you've got the pay review body coming out in the next couple of weeks that wants to pay teachers and nurses even more above inflation than what the Treasury's budgeted for, which will be a huge row. Which will, I bet you anything, I'll bet my blue tie on this table that there'll be more strikes by the end of this year under this government because of its woeful budgeting.
And a lot of these pay rises are unfunded. So these pay rises for teachers are coming out of classroom budgets, and it's not long before the unions will point that out and there will be more strikes.
Quite right.
Hold on, Miriam. There's two things. It's first of all to get the teachers back to work, to pay them properly. Right, when this government came in, that was completely funded, right? People like you said that somehow there should be a productivity deal. I don't quite understand how you do a productivity deal on teachers and nurses. But now what they've said is Rachel Reeves has said, you know, there is only this much. We know that the pay review is going to be more, and then there will be discussions with the unions, right, about how to do it. And as Bridget Phillipson keeps on saying, it's not just about pay, it's also about recognising how important teachers are. And there's things around the edges.
But it's about recognising how the rest of the country and, you know, hard-working people that open their shops at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, that, you know, been taxed to the rafters through national insurance contributions when the government said they weren't going to do it, pensioners that have had their winter fuel taken away from them, farmers that are going under because of those increases in inheritance tax.
This hasn't actually happened yet, right? The thing, what I'm talking about, the teachers.
All right, before we get in the minutiae of that, what seems pretty clear, is that a lot of people are disillusioned with the Labour Party after just 10 months, and they're going somewhere else. The problem you've got, Charlie, is what they're not doing is going to the Conservatives.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's a fair challenge. I mean, the Tory party tonight this morning is the third party. If you look at those mayoral elections, and I think, you know, for the Labour, if you are a Labour member, I would have thought, you know, luck be a Labour mayor tonight, because, you know, you've got in on the back of a split vote between Reform and the Conservatives. So that's something that the Tories and Reform have got to address. But it's a long way back for the Tories. There's no doubt about it. I think as we'll see as the day progresses.
Well, and that's the question, Charlie. Is there a route back for the Tories? Because I think some people would say, no matter how well Kemi Badenoch is doing, no matter how well she performs in the Commons, isn't it the case that we're just still far too close to that Tory government, to the failures that people perceive, that no leader could actually bring those voters back to the Conservatives right now?
I mean, I think there is an element of that. I mean, I think, look, you know, nobody wants to give up power, and everybody should be able to vote for every party. So everybody, I think, should be on the ticket at times. But there is a case to say, well, why don't we just, you know, or why don't we now have to scrutinise Reform? So if they win council seats, they've won mayoralties, as we saw tonight, they've got real scrutiny coming their way. And if they fail to deliver, then that's a way in which, obviously, the Tories can capitalise on that vote that has left. Because, you know, you say to the electorate, well, it's not easy, is it? And it's not easy.
I mean,
so Reform will come under the scrutiny that the Labour government
and it does remind me of probably before you were born, in the 80s, the Social Democrat Party, where it looked as though Labour was going to be completely wiped out, that they were going to be everywhere. They were, and the media, like Reform, the media absolutely loved them. And they just went, and it was like that, and it was. I mean, because there are bubbles, right? So at the moment we're in a Reform bubble. We have no idea what's going to happen. Even in a year's time, as you keep saying, you know, Boris Johnson in 2019, I mean, was king, and he'd gone.
Yeah, but the issue is, I mean, maybe it is a Reform bubble. Maybe it will all disappear by the time of the next general election, and we don't know at this stage. The problem you've got as a Labour Party is that you've come in on the back of 14 years of Conservative government and said they're not doing a good job, we need to change it all. There is change coming, and we're not seeing it. All we get is stuff which seems very counterintuitive and just saying, oh, we're laying the foundations. It's not good enough. People aren't happy.
No, and Labour has to do more, and yet they have to do it faster. But if you look at education, right, so there are three major things. There's nurseries, there's... But actually...
But it's not just education, is it? It's everything else.
No, but actually, if you have proper nursery provision, it makes the whole difference to lots and lots of working...
It's also not what people want. Like, all the polling says that most mums want to have more time with their children when they're 0 to 3, and actually that's by far and away what's better for children than putting them in institutional care. And yet governments of both stripes insist on rolling out more and more institutionalised childcare. It's not what people want.
Actually, Miriam, most mothers would like to have it both ways. Most mothers would like to work, but you can only work if you have decent childcare. Then you have breakfast clubs that actually get children. The education can make a whole difference to this country.
All right, you two. It's been good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Just want to show you that Russell Brand is due to appear in court. He should be arriving any moment. That's the scene. He's charged with rape, indecent assault and sexual assault. Bring you full coverage of that, of course. But first, here's your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Some more cloud around today, a risk of showers and feeling a little cooler across northern areas, but otherwise there's plenty of warm sunshine to go around, particularly across the south. Now, through the early hours of the morning across the southwest, there could be some low cloud, but this eventually easing away through the morning. The odd shower possible across central and southern parts, but this should be very isolated. The bulk of the showers are going to be across the very far north of Scotland with more cloud here, but otherwise many should see a largely dry end to the week and feeling warm still, highs of around 26 degrees Celsius across the southeast, just a little cooler across Scotland, northern parts of England, but still feeling pleasant in any sunnier spells. To finish off the day, more clouds still across northern parts of Scotland, still plenty of showers sweeping their way eastwards, a little drier across southern parts of Scotland and a largely dry and bright end to the day across Northern Ireland too. Northern England might just see a little bit more cloud, particularly across eastern areas, but central and southern parts once again should see a largely dry end to the day. There's still the chance of the odd shower just creeping in across the far south to finish off the day, but any showers mostly easing away for the first part of the evening, but we're going to see more and more cloud continue to feed its way into Scotland, more showers moving through here, and also some showery outbreaks just starting to clip their way into the very far southwest through the earlier hours of the morning, and these could be potentially quite heavy, but overall largely dry and still a fairly mild night to come. Now, we do need to keep an eye on this area across the southwest. Some heavy showers just pushing up across southern counties. They could turn heavy, potentially quite thundery as we head through the course of the morning, but most of the thunderstorms perhaps may just stay out across the English Channel. But any showers across Scotland easing away, and once again many areas seeing a dry and bright day, a little cooler but still pleasant in the sunshine, highs of 21 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24, sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Today, expect delays on the M5 southbound at junction 19 in North Somerset due to a broken down vehicle with one lane closed. Resurfacing continues on the M4 westbound from junction 25A to junction 28, which remains closed with diversions in place. On the M62 eastbound in Rochdale, flooding between junctions 18 and 19 results in one lane being closed. Meanwhile, the M1 northbound in Leicestershire, between junctions 24 and 25, has two lanes closed due to a broken down vehicle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24, sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps four, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Well, in a nail-biting night for politics, Reform UK have won the Runcorn and Helsby by-election.
Sarah Joanne Pochin, Reform UK, 12,645.
Enough is enough. Enough Tory failure, enough Labour lies.
Yes, that was after a full recount and a final lead of just 6 votes. Sarah Pochin will be the new MP. This marks a significant shift in the history of what was a traditional Labour voting seat.
People are so fed up with the two main parties. They're not the two main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country.
Well, the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, says this momentous result proves they're not a protest party.
We are not a protest party, even though there is much to protest about. No, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn this country around.
And I do hereby declare that the said Andrea Marie Jenkins is duly elected as Mayor to the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority.
Yes, that was more good news for Reform UK. Dame Andrea Jenkins has won the Lincolnshire mayoral election.
Labour wins the mayoral elections in Doncaster and the west of England, despite record poll plunges. But the party faithful accept there is a lot of work still to be done.
Reform UK are the antithesis to everything I believe in, all right? They're the opposite of my politics. However, they do believe in something. They show that. They show that they have beliefs and that they stand by specific views and specific principles, supposedly, that they outline.
And it's looking to be a very difficult night for the Conservatives.
9 months ago, the British people resoundingly turfed us out of office with our worst defeat in our entire history. So we've got a long way to go before we start regaining the trust of the British people.
In other news this morning, Donald Trump will nominate Mike Waltz to serve as his UN ambassador. That's after ousting him as National Security Advisor in the first White House shake-up of his second term.
And Prince Harry will today discover whether he's won a Court of Appeal challenge over his security arrangements while in the UK.
Russell Brand set to appear in court charged with rape, indecent assault and sexual assault between 1999 and 2005 relating to 4 different women. This is the scene live at the court where he's due to arrive any minute now.
Hello there, good morning. A chance of the odd shower and feeling a little cooler for some today, but still plenty of warm sunshine to go around. Stay tuned and I'll be here with all the details.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Miriam Cates, and you're watching GB News Breakfast.
What a night it's been so far, and we've not even got to the local sort of council elections yet, have we, across most places?
And because there have been so few elections, it's actually been an opportunity to focus in detail on some of the individual results, and some of the mayoral results have been quite astounding. I mean, they're very much expected to win Lincolnshire, but they came a very close second. Reform came a very close seconds in Doncaster, and even pushed Labour close in the west of England, which was really unpredicted.
Yeah, well, let's talk to the chair of the Labour Party, Ellie Reeves, who joins us now. Are you as surprised at these results as the rest of us?
Well, look, you know, it was a mixed night. Obviously, Labour held on to the West of England Combined Authority mayor at the mayors in Doncaster and in North Tyneside. We weren't able to hold on to the parliamentary seat of Runcorn. Incumbent governments often don't do well in parliamentary by-elections. Obviously, this one was being held in very difficult circumstances following the resignation of the MP here. I think what was interesting about that election is the Tories didn't seem to put up much of a campaign, and a big part of that seat was the former Weaver Vale seat, which was Conservative until 2017. But instead, Esther McVey, for example, said that the Tories shouldn't fight there, that they should leave it to Reform to win the seat.
Worry you, because in some ways that's a form of tactical voting. It's an unspoken pact, and actually if that was repeated at the next election, if in all the places where potentially Reform could win the Conservatives gave up, that would be a huge headache for Labour MPs, wouldn't it?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of moderate voters that would be appalled of the idea of a pact between the Conservatives and Reform. And, you know, we heard Robert Jenrick just last week talk about a coalition between the Conservatives and Reform. I think both of those parties need to come clean about any grubby backroom deals. You know, if people are voting Reform, are they getting Conservative? If they're voting Conservative, are they getting Reform? And I think they need to be clear about that.
Are you saying people who vote Reform are in some way extreme?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the Conservatives and Reform need to come clean about any coalitions between the two parties.
But forgive me, but you did say moderate voters would be upset. So you're saying people aren't moderate if they vote Reform?
Well, look, I think that people need to know what there is they're voting for. And some of the comments made by Robert Jenrick and by Esther McVey suggest that there are these deals going on behind closed doors. And I think that those two parties need to be clear about that.
I'm not sure there's any suggestion of that at all. Isn't it just a matter of tactical voting, which is something that's happened particularly between Labour and Liberal Democrat voters for a long time? That's just how the voting system works in first past the post, isn't it?
Well, look, I just think that, you know, there needs to be a bit of honesty about it. You know, Robert Jenrick made these comments that seem to be a lot more than just about tactical voting. It was talking about an electoral pact, a coalition of some kind. That's very different just for tactical voting, for example.
How do you explain away what's happened? I mean, you can't blame it all on the Conservatives or on Mike Amesbury, the former Labour MP for Runcorn and Helsby, can you? Because even where you've won mayoral elections, you've lost so much support, and it's ended up being a pretty tight race. What that seems to indicate is, surely, that the government is not addressing a lot of the issues that ordinary people up and down the country have got concerns about.
When we were elected to government last July, we were elected on a platform of change. And look, I recognise that people are impatient for change. I'm impatient for that change. The government's impatient for that change. Since coming into government, we have started to deliver on our plan for change. It takes time. You know, NHS waiting lists are down 6 months in a row, but there are still too many people on waiting lists. Take Runcorn, for example. Just last month, month, we delivered 4 new free breakfast clubs in primary schools. Well, we want to go further and faster. We want every primary school in Runcorn to have a free breakfast club. Just last month, our increase in the national minimum wage means that 3.5 million low-paid workers are getting a pay rise. But you know, it will take a while for people to feel the effects of those things. So, look, change takes time. We know we need to go further and faster, and we know that people are impatient for that change, but we're getting on with delivering on our plan for change.
One of the key election issues at the last election and also in last night's vote seems to be immigration. People clearly gave up on the Conservatives in terms of sorting that problem out. Do you not think they've also now given up on Labour with the promises to smash the gangs, the removal of the Rwanda scheme, no intention at all to reform the ECHR?
Well, the Conservatives' Rwanda gimmick cost £700 million of taxpayers' money and resulted in only 4 volunteers going to Rwanda. Instead, we are getting on with going after the criminal gangs, giving the police anti-terrorism powers to go after those gangs. So smashing the gangs, but also one of the things that happened under the Conservative government was a complete collapse in returns.
Yeah, you list all that, sounds great. What impact is it having? We're having more illegal immigrants than ever before.
Well, one of the things that we've done is sped up returns. 24,000 people with no right to stay here have been removed since the general election, far more than happened under the previous Conservative government. We said in our manifesto that we would close the asylum hotels. We've already announced the closure of some hotels. But again, we know we need to go further on faster on this, but that's why we've set up our new border security command. It's why we've sped up asylum processing. It's why we've sped up returns. I think that's really important, rather than the Rwanda gimmick that the previous government introduced that saw only 4 volunteers go to Rwanda. I don't think that's much of a deterrent.
OK. Ellie Reeves, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Well, perhaps it wasn't a deterrent because the Labour Party removed it as soon as they got into power.
Yes, it
we'll never know.
Never actually came into play, did it?
Indeed.
I don't know. It's gbnews.com/yoursay for your reaction to that. It's I think, and we were saying earlier, and as someone, of course, who was an MP, and I don't know if you did many media rounds. I never interviewed you.
Oh, well, I didn't do government media rounds because I was never in government, so I did a lot of media.
But there's something to be said for politicians. I know even they've got to toe the party line and all the rest of it. Sometimes you just want a straight answer.
Absolutely.
Even when things aren't going right, you want a straight answer. And I have to say, smash the gangs, well, nothing's actually happening.
And also, breakfast clubs, nobody's asked for them. They're not very popular. Lots of people are saying, well, why can't we feed our children at home? There's not a vote winner. They might think it's a good thing. It's not a vote winner. What is a vote winner is sorting out immigration and sorting out the economy. And unfortunately, both of those two things have got worse under Labour.
Well, people in Runcorn and Helsby had their say on that because there was the by-election there last night, which was won by Reform UK. It is the first big defeat for Sir Keir Starmer since the general election.
Yes, and there's been more success for Reform because Andrea Jenkins has made history as she became the first mayor for Greater Lincolnshire and Reform UK.
Meanwhile, overnight, the Labour Party did win the Tyneside, Doncaster and West of England mayoralties, despite plummeting polls and much closer margins than they were expecting.
Well, let's take a quick look now at how some of our politicians have been reacting to that nail-biting night.
This is without a doubt the most important set of local elections in British history, for the primary reason that what it has shown is that the stranglehold that the two old parties have had on British politics for 100 years has been decisively broken.
People want the change that we promised in the general election. They can see some big steps toward that in the first 9 months, but they want a lot more.
I mean, it has been a long night, and we were bracing ourselves for a challenging night because, of course, many of the results that will be coming in today are based off the cycle of 2021, where we had an unprecedented victory. We got 66%, I think, of all seats up. We were winning seats. We won the Hartlepool by-election on the same day. So 4 years later, in a very different circumstance, having lost 2/3 of our MPs at last year's general election, of course, we were bracing ourselves for a very difficult night.
We are not a protest party, even though there is much to protest about. No, the whole vibe with Reform UK is, you know what, we can turn turn this country around.
People are so fed up with the two main parties. They're not the two main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country.
We're not going to fail on this. This is a pivotal moment for reform because, as you said, we're going to get power. And to me, it's about leading with a sword of common sense.
We are pretty hopeful that we can make some significant gains, particularly against the Conservatives, and that we may be able to replace the Conservatives as a larger party in local government and become the voice for Middle England.
I always feel quite sorry for Andrea Jenkins there, which this is resounding success, but she looks absolutely shattered in that she will be. She got her words out very well. She looked absolutely exhausted.
Definitely needs a power nap before she gets on with the job.
Yes, she does. Someone else who's probably pretty exhausted is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's up in Runcorn for us. Morning, Catherine.
Yes, good morning from Runcorn, where we have seen Reform take this seat by just 6 votes. That's the narrowest margin since the war. Quite extraordinary. There was a recount and Nigel Farage emerged absolutely triumphant, and Reform now has its first female MP in Sarah Pochin. Now, look, cast your mind back. Just 10 months ago, Labour won this seat with a whopping majority of 15,000. They had over half the vote. Reform were way behind on just 18%. How things have changed, and I think change is the key word here, because of course that's what Labour promised. And I remember up and down the country on the election trail, so many people saying they were going to vote for Labour because they were fed up with the Conservatives. Change, they couldn't be any worse. And now you hear over and over again that people are already unhappy with this new government. They don't feel the change. They don't feel that things are getting better, and they are turning largely to Reform. Now, talking to Sarah Pochin, she was saying there are not 2 main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties. Now, they've only got 5 MPs in Parliament, but they've just won Lincolnshire mayoralty, haven't they? They're going to win lots of council seats. They are going to have to actually be in charge of stuff, and they're going to have to follow through on that. But for now, they've really got the wind on their sails, and not just the Tories worried, but now Labour very, very worried about Reform as well.
Thank you, Catherine. A long night there, Catherine Harden. Interesting, we had Ellie Reeves, chair of the Labour Party, on just before Catherine, and kind of still laying the blame at the door of the Conservatives. And of course, in power for 14 years, of course it had an impact, but almost failing to recognise, really, that people have already moved on from Labour.
Yeah, loads of you getting in touch. VT says it looks like Labour wants to buy votes with breakfast. I find it patronising. It's poor vision. We need to change more than just breakfast clubs. Well, keep your thoughts coming through gbnews.com/yoursay.
Well, summer is finally on its way, and imagine where you could be going if you won our greatest ever Great British giveaway. A £67,000 motorhome is up for grabs, and £5,000 in tax-free cash.
Yes, if you want to be in for a chance to win it, here's how.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, Russell Brand due to arrive in court any minute now. He's charged with rape and sexual assault. We'll bring you the latest on that in a moment.
exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Russell Brand is due in court today. He's charged with 2 counts of rape, indecent assault and sexual assault. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is across everything at the moment. Mark?
Good morning to you. This is a well-worn procedure down here at Westminster Magistrates Court. They're used to dealing and have dealt with big-name celebrities over the years, but few are bigger than Russell Brand, of course, actor and comedian, internationally renowned, who was charged at the beginning of last month with a number of serious offences relating to rape, sexual assault and indecent assault, and those offences relate to 4 women on a date between 1999 and 2005, and I'm told that this is Russell Brand's vehicle now arriving. You can see the usual bun fight as photographers jump out in front of the car there. There are barriers in place for both sides to allow Russell Brand to come into court, but there are always those who are overly enthusiastic, who want to jump in, and you can hear that's a plainclothes police officer actually shouting at those photographers and camera crews to get back, saying that he's not coming out unless you get back. But the trouble is, as I say, I mean, he's such a well-known celebrity. There are many more members of the press here than would normally be the case because of just who this individual is, regardless of the fact he is now facing serious offences. He's, I think, out of that vehicle now, and it's going to be probably quite a slow walk in to Westminster Magistrates Court, because it's got pretty chaotic here, as it often does, with one or two deciding to jump out in front of the path of Russell Brand as he goes into the court, and that has become a couple of dozen now. So it'll be a slow move in towards the court, but there are plenty of police officers there and personal security for Russell Brand to make sure that clearly he gets into court safely. So wearing his dark sunglasses there, coming into court, looking very serious for what will be, usually anyway, a brief first court appearance. Although he was charged back in April, the 4th of April to be precise, he was actually in the United States at that time. So we had to wait. So there was a special arrangement made between the prosecution services and Russell Brand to allow him time to finish up with his commitments in the US and to return voluntarily to the UK. It's really getting quite pushy and shovey, I have to say now, at that front door. As we're at the crush point now as Russell Brand enters the court itself, just disappearing into the court, and that's it. The photographers and camera crews will just resume their normal position until, of course, he comes back out of court, and then it'll be Bun Fight Mark II, the sequel. So Russell Brand, as I say, he's going to appear in court for what will be quite a brief court hearing. First magistrates' court hearings are always pretty brief affairs, just to lay out the charges, confirm his name, address, date of birth, that kind of thing, and then he'll come back out here having been then given a Crown Court appearance.
OK. Mark, for now, thanks very much indeed. Back to you a little bit later on.
Well, coming up soon at 9:30, we've got Ben, Leo and Nano Akua, and they're here to tell us all about what's on Britain's Newsroom this morning. What will you be covering this morning? What a difficult question.
Sure. There's much going on today, I don't know. Maybe a reaction. We'll be looking kind of the reaction to reform getting another MP, which is quite something. Only 6 votes in it, so we'll be talking about that.
Big questions are, I want to know what's the point of the Tories this morning. I'm not mocking the Tories, I want to know where they go from here. Likewise, Keir Starmer, when he wakes up this morning and he's eating his cornflakes or his muesli probably, what's going through his head?
Smashed avocado.
Will they change direction? Will they double down? And what does a change of direction look like if indeed they decide to go now?
And will people finally take Reform UK seriously as a party? Because a lot of people are saying that Reform take all the Tory votes, but this is clear that actually a lot of Reform voters come from the Labour Party as well.
Yes, similar to your programme, great show today. We're going all across the country for analysis, reporting. We've got former MPs, we've got current MPs, we've got pollsters, so stick around and we'll have some fun over the next 2.5 hours.
Well, stay with us, but first, let's get some weather.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M4 westbound remains closed due to resurfacing work between Grove Park Junction 25A and Tredegar Park Junction 28. Diversions are available. In Leicestershire, drivers on the M1 North between junctions 24 and 25 should anticipate delays as a broken down vehicle has closed 2 out of 4 lanes. Clearing is expected shortly. Meanwhile, in Surrey, the A3 northbound is experiencing disruptions between the junctions with the A247 and the M25 due to a single lane closure. Clearing is imminent. Remember to stay safe on the roads today, and for more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You've got Cambridge versus Oxford tonight, although you might want to ring up Oxford and see whether or not they've actually heard of Kai. I think rankings is a great thing. When I was at university, it was very intense. Sure, it creates a really competitive atmosphere, but if you go to an elite university, you should expect a competitive atmosphere, because you should expect that by the end of it, you will be refined in fire to be amongst the best in the world at whatever subject you're studying. So I frankly think it's fantastic if you could weigh yourselves up against your peers. Obviously, it runs against the sort of pathetic wokery that we've seen in recent years. It doesn't want anybody to be able to see, you know, how they measure up against other people. But you know, I don't know whether this is woke or if it's just pathetic. But of course, I have it on good authority that Kai had a very healthy work-life balance when he was at Oxford. Maybe a little too healthy, wouldn't you say, Kai?
Well, it's no surprise that the Cambridge person on the panel is a bit boring.
Where did you go, Kai? Where did you go? Just for the record, where did you go?
Oxford.
Right, let's carry on.
And I do apologise to the viewers. You probably didn't expect to have two Oxbridge plankers on your screens tonight. Look, everybody knows where they stand in their classes. All the Cambridge has done is vowed to review class lists, weekend lectures, teaching outside of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I mean, you and I both know it's a tough